All right. Merry Christmas and blessed nativity to everyone. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I am back with my friend and literary connoisseur, Bazed Lit Analyzer. How you doing today, sir? Merry Christmas to you and your family.
What's up? Merry Christmas to you and yours, of course. And this is our 15th stream. Did you know that?
Yeah, dude. I was looking at all of our streams earlier. In fact, I was thinking about pulling it up because last year we did A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Then we just a month ago, right after Thanksgiving, we did, or maybe it was right around Thanksgiving, we did Home Alone 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is actually our third Christmas movie installment.
That's right.
Of us doing movie reviews.
That's right. And y'all in the chat, if you can't hear me, if you need me to speak closer to the mic, I got my snowball mic here, so I can like old style. So if that's a little better, just let me know what's better, because
it is a little bit better if you're closer.
There we go.
Can hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll hold it like that.
We're gonna need to get you a lapel mic to put on all those cardigans you got.
Yeah. Well, I wore this cardigan because I was rewatching Christmas Vacation last night, and he has the same sweater. He has the exact same sweater. I was looking for a green tie that I could put on.
Oh my gosh, that'd been perfect with little red Christmas trees and stuff.
Yeah.
So that would have been perfect.
We've done this. We've done Halloween streams. We've done streams around 4th of July. We've done all the holidays. We need to get Arbor Day and all those in there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm here on location. I'm on location in the Deep South, and so I'm outside here on a nice quiet day. Hope everybody's enjoying their Christmas days. It's only a couple days now, so luckily I've got all my presents. And how about you? Have you done all your shopping?
I have. I'm a gift card giver, so it's pretty easy to do a lot of shopping. And my nieces, they're, one's in college and the two are getting ready to graduate high school, so they just want money anyway. So you just got to go to the dollar store, get a little Christmas card, and then you just put cash in it. So
well, it's like George W. Bush says, don't send us your blankets or your presents, just send us cash.
Well, I hate for you to have to hold that thing the whole time.
Yeah, if I get up, I might try and push this back, and then I'll just sit up like I usually do.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's
we
a little
can hear
better.
you clear there.
Yeah. So so it was a good trip down here. It's like a 14-hour drive.
Woo!
Down here, I did it all in one day, but it was broken up because I got to spend some time with Jay and Jamie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I met up with them on the way, and we had dinner together, and it was wonderful. Very good to meet them in person. So,
who'd you guys meet? Nashville?
We met along the way in Tennessee, past Nashville. Yeah, very cool. And so, to everybody out there who thinks that Jay is Mr. Meanie Man, you couldn't be further from the truth. Very nice, very kind. They're a beautiful couple.
Yes,
they were very sweet, very generous, and very cool. So. It was really, really nice to spend some time.
Yes, they are. They're great people. I've had the privilege of spending a considerable amount of time with both of them. And so, major fan. Shout out to Jay and Jamie. God bless you both. Merry Christmas to you guys and your family.
Yeah.
Okay. So, today we're going to be diving into two Christmas classics, which I assume everybody in the chat has seen: Christmas Vacation and A Christmas Story. Mm-hmm. How do you want to open today's overview? Anything you want to say? Some general comments?
Yeah, I guess that these are two. It's funny because these two movies are similar. They're family, they're family movies. They're centered around the family unit. They're both Christmas staples. For me, A Christmas Story is past the point of annoying to me now. It's hard for me to watch. I've seen the movie so many times. It used to run 24/7 on TNT on Christmas and on Thanksgiving. I've seen it like a million times, but Christmas Vacation never really gets old to me. And I actually did a stream on Caddyshack about a year and a half ago. And it's funny because Caddyshack is about this guy. It was written by a guy named Doug Kenny. And Doug Kenny is the guy who started National Lampoon. Of course, Christmas Vacation is a National Lampoon movie. He had passed away by the time they did Christmas Vacation. But this movie, that movie ties in with Home Alone that we recently did for a number of different ways. And funny, this is very funny, that there are connections between A Christmas Story and a lot of the work that you've done, Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan, Understanding Media, was a big fan of Gene Shepard, the guy who wrote the original short story for A Christmas Story. So it's funny. It's funny how things connect. What did Jay say?
He said, "Not me. 2024 is the year of love."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yes.
God bless you, Jay.
Yeah. So yeah, both are great. Both are great movies, and I think that, I mean, especially the emphasis on with how much the work life ties in with how good the Christmas is going to be and providing for the family, I think is pretty relevant now, especially with Clark in National Lampoon, about getting his Christmas bonus. There are a lot of people I know that can relate to that. And, but they're both very funny, especially Christmas Vacation. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I agree. Christmas Vacation is a Christmas staple for me. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I've seen it about every Christmas season for as long as I can remember. A Christmas Story actually takes place in my home state, or at least it's set in my home state of Indiana, northern Indiana. In the movie, it's called Hammond, Haman, but the real city is Hammond, Hammond. It's based off the person who wrote the story. So it's based off his Christmas experiences growing up in northern Indiana, really close to the Chicago metro area, just south of Lake Michigan there. So it's one that always plays. It's amazing how popular A Christmas Story is. It was never one of my favorites growing up. Certainly there were some memorable moments. The tongue on the metal pole, the little boy, the fight scene, the leg lamp, the getting your eye shot out by the Red Ryder BB gun. But yeah, it was never my particularly favorite Christmas movie, but I felt like we needed to include it just because it is an absolute American Christmas classic.
It is, yeah. And it's interesting how A Christmas Story is so based in the not based, but it's set in the 1940s. I guess it's 1940s. 1940s, 1950s. It's all about all of the products are mentioned throughout the whole thing. And also the thing that I find the funniest is the Red Ryder BB gun and how he's going to shoot his eye out, and then he shoots his eye out, and that's very true. I whenever I was given any kind of a weapon at any time in my life, I always ended up that was the first thing. I remember someone gave me a knife for a present, and I was told to be very careful with it. And the first thing I did was slice my thumb open. So it's very, very true. This story.
I was going to say the exact same thing with a knife. I remember the first time I got a pocket knife, and my dad was warning me, "Now be careful. I got, that's a sharp one. You're going to cut your finger." And I cut my finger with it. So classic tale. Our sister Rachel Wilson throws in $5, says, "Merry Christmas to Patrick, BLA, and the COTEL crew." Well, thank you so much, Rachel. God bless you. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Blessed Nativity. And I'll be with Andrew later this evening for his Christmas extravaganza. And so, guys, feel free, smash that like since you're here. And if you want to show some love or you have some questions or comments for our movie review today, feel free to send in super chats using Streamlabs or the Dono chat link. Either one would be greatly appreciative. Or if you prefer YouTube, that's fine as well. Or if you're in the giving spirit, gift some memberships. That would be great. And then we had a $2 super chat come in over by Stealth. Stealth throws in $2. Let me pull that up. And he says, "Merry Christmas." Well, Merry Christmas to you, Stealth. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat, brother. Really appreciate you. Okay, so before we start getting into it, because I don't think this one's going to go as long as some of our previous movie reviews, anything you got to shill? Any
Yeah.
way people can support you, help you out during the season? What can you tell the people?
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Yes, please go to my YouTube channel, Bazed Lit Analyzer. Please grab a membership. We've got memberships now, and I've done a bunch of membership streams. I've been trying to do them every week, and I've done a bunch of movies. I did the new End of the World movie with Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke right when that came out. I did The Killer and Albert Camus' The Stranger, a comparison between those two right when that came out. I'm trying to do those. I'm trying to do those like right when the movies come out for people. And so you can grab a membership over there. And also you guys go back and watch our streams. I mean, we've done, I think 15 movie streams together here.
Yeah.
Also our Master and Margarita, all of our friends are doing great work out there. Shouts out to Rachel because please go to my Instagram, everybody. You can like my Instagram. Rachel liked some of the books that I posted recently I went on a book buying trip to Oxford, Mississippi, and she liked some of the books. The first one that I saw walking up to the bookstore was the Liz Cheney autobiography, and there was like a children's book on Northwoods, which was, I'm sure it didn't have anything to do with Operation Northwoods, but Rachel liked that I posted the history. It was like a history of women in the CIA. She said, "Oh, I got to get that one." And I almost got the Prince Harry autobiography. I think maybe Jamie and I will do that if she wants to do that, because it's pretty dark. We're gonna read that one so you don't have to. But I got a bunch of books. One of the ones that I got, it's important to go to bookstores and like dig through yourself, especially used bookstores, because I got a signed copy of Bret Easton Ellis's newest book, The Shards, which they didn't, they had put in the regular section. They didn't know it was signed. So oftentimes you get, better books, or you can grab first edition books just by digging through yourself. So that's what I got going on. And I'll be doing another stream from down here sometime soon. I'm doing one on a book on the 1980s and big money in the 1980s. I found a first edition book here by this guy who writes about Trump and some of the financial wars in the 80s. And I didn't realize it was the same writer who wrote The Big Short. So I'll be doing that soon, maybe with my friend Maddie at Digital Minefield. And that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys want to support my work, one of the best things you can do is become a website member. You can do so with this link right here. Make sure you go over to BLA and subscribe to his channel. His link's posted in the video description right here. And he's also tagged, so you can click his name, his handle, and it'll take you straight to his channel. Grab a membership. And if you'd like to support my work, go to my website and get a website membership, of which we have tons of exclusive content, along with a fitness membership, a premium membership. We'll be having, I got a new video lined up that I'll be uploading tomorrow. Lots of transhumanism stuff, a lot of little edgy content you can't put over on YouTube is up at the website. Also, if anybody would like to sign up for a one-on-one session, you can do so with this link right here. We can talk about anything that your heart desires in a private Zoom meeting. And if you would like to sponsor a stream, you can do so right here with this link. Also, feel free to grab some merch. You can always support by grabbing some merch and stuff like that. So really appreciate everybody. And those are just a few ways you can support. Orthodox Boomer Grandmother throws in $10. Thank you so much, Alexandria. She says, "Blessed nativity to all, and thanks for your great work, DPH." Well, thank you, Alexandria, and thank your husband for all the great work you guys are doing, and thank you very much for your support. It really means a lot. Merry Christmas and blessed nativity to you. Oh, and our brother, Technicore Graphics, throws in $5. Says, "Merry Christmas, everyone. Always great to catch BLA DPH live streams." Well, thank you so much, brother. Hope you're, I'm sure, staying warm down in the sunny state of Florida. But thank you so much, brother, for your support. God bless you and your family, and hope you are enjoying your Christmas. Okay. So which movie you want to start with?
Let's start with Christmas Story, I guess. It's the first sequence, so we'll start with that.
Let's start with the Christmas Story. So how do you want to open? Go ahead.
Well, Yeah, I think that it's, the main character in this, Ralphie, who is played by Peter Billingsley, has ended up being he's one of the few child stars that's actually ended up with a pretty lucrative career in the movies. He continues to be a producer. I sent you an article earlier where he,
I saw that.
yes, of course, of
Of course,
course,
that's something you would send me.
yeah, of course it is. Yes, he found one of the musicians who he was a composer for. I think a bunch of different movies. He was the one who came across this guy dead and OD'd in a hotel room in Chicago. But regardless of that, he's had a pretty lucrative career. The story comes from a short story called like, what is it? Merry Christmas, All Others Pay Cash. It was written by Gene Shepard. Gene Shepard is the guy who does the voiceover for older Ralphie in the movie. And like I was saying at the beginning, this guy, Marshall McLuhan, Understanding Media, called in that book. That book's at home. Called him the first radio novelist. So he's kind of creating a new medium. And I know that there are a bunch of comedians who found him, very funny. And this short story was actually first published in Playboy magazine. And then it becomes this Christmas staple. It wasn't seen as a huge movie when it first started. And in fact, but it took off. And in fact, they said that it sort of played out pretty quickly by the time Christmas came around. Everybody had seen the movie. Jack Nicholson was wanted to play the father in the movie, but they would have had to have doubled the budget in order to get him. Sean Astin auditioned for the role of Ralphie, but he didn't get it. He went on to do Goonies, and yeah, there are a few special tie-ins with this movie. I think this movie is interesting because it is all encompassing in the world that it portrays. It's different from Christmas Vacation because it's more relatable because I was a kid when it came out, and there are other, it follows in line from other National Lampoon movies, but this movie is like a one-off that is all in itself, and it creates a whole sort of pastiche of a time and a place, in a wholesome time and a place in mid-century America that I think is pretty interesting, and it also sticks with the perspective of Ralphie the entire time.
Yeah, and I'll say the things about A Christmas Story. I think it's really relatable to just young boys growing up. So the idea of like the daydreaming sequences. Now they're kind of cliche, if you will, or kind of slapstick funny. But I remember as a kid always daydreaming about various scenarios, dreaming about getting some type guns. I always love guns, so getting my BB guns or knives or stuff like that. Standing up to bullies, and trying to avoid that. The sort of jovial groupings of boys always challenging others. So like the double dog, triple dog dare to stick your tongue on the metal light pole. And even the young boy says, I talked to my dad. He said, if you do that, your tongue's going to stick. And the idea when you're a little kid, my dad said this. Well, my dad said that. Your dad doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's just the sort of perspective through Ralphie, the little boy, very relatable. And of course, I said this takes place in Indiana, my home state. And it is a sort of idyllic Christmas scene. You have the snow, you have the sort of general mid-American culture, right? Where people are out there for the Christmas parade, all that different stuff. It's really a bygone era because you don't see that stuff much anymore. Everything's so commercialized.
Yes. And it's commercialized in this, but in a way where the products are sort of interwoven with the story. And we don't really, from Ralphie's perspective, we don't really think of those things. He names the product specifically, right? Like when he gets the big secret, it's Ovaltine says, drink your milk or whatever. And it's the Red Ryder special, Daisy, BB gun. He names all the products. And I think that's something that, especially became unique to America, like post-war America. Also, the funny stuff is like with the little brother, how the little brother can't move, and he has
the
to
dorky little brother.
Yes, and that's so true. That's very true. And like you were saying with, my dad says this for me. It would always be. I can remember conversations like this. It would be like, well, my dad says this, and somebody would say, well, my dad's going to beat your dad up, and then I would say, well, my dad's going to blast your dad with a shotgun, and they would say, well, my dad has a rocket launcher. Well, my dad has nukes. So, yeah, it's interesting in this. It's also interesting how, like their thing with eating Chinese food, on Christmas Eve is a thing that we've done in the past, and it's funny how a lot of Christmas movies will lead up to Christmas, but then not include Christmas, or they end on Christmas morning. Home Alone did that. It ended right on Christmas morning. It has a unique culmination. Like it's the very height of the season.
Same thing with Christmas Vacation. It ends actually the night before Christmas.
Right. Yeah, they never actually make it to Christmas. It's also funny in that movie. I know we're going to get to it, but it's funny how the family. You look at the Christmas calendar, and it's like it's only the 21st. The family's been there for a week already. God, how do they survive?
I know. Right? Well, and Uncle Eddie planned on being there for a month. Yes. But we'll get into that one. I think it's better to save that one for last, because that's the one that I did a poll here on the live chat, and 65% say that they vote Christmas Vacation better than A Christmas Story. But that's a still solid 35% that prefers A Christmas Story. And they have every Christmas, I forget which channel, and maybe it changes, but they have the 24-hour Christmas Story special where they just play it on repeat, usually Christmas Eve, for 24 hours.
Yes, I know. Yes, used to. It was on TBS. It was on TBS, and we go over to my aunt's house, and it would be playing nonstop all day. And I couldn't get over, like, my cousins are like, "This is the part where," and I'm like, "I know, dude. I've seen this 7 times already today." So, maybe the people voting that haven't seen it as many times as I have, or something. I don't know.
Rachel said, I had a snowsuit that had holes in the knees, and my dad duct taped them, and I couldn't move. Just like Ralphie's little brother. That's hilarious. I need to see photos of that, Rachel. We need to see documentary proof. So yeah, the Christmas Story, there's, both of them, but the Christmas Story certainly has a strong nuclear family. We see a stay-at-home mother. We see a husband that goes and works, able to provide a house, a car, raising 2 sons. And just the little motifs about the father. Again, we're going to move through all the scenes here in a second, but trying to help your dad. So the scene where he goes to help him change the tire. I remember as a kid, always screwing up. You go to help your dad do stuff. My dad's a very man's man, works with his hands, does stuff. And then you're a little boy. One, you kind of don't want to, but then it's an opportunity. Mom said, I need to go help dad. And then he's like, well, do this. No, do it like this. No, you're doing it wrong. Damn it. You're just go.
Yeah. Did you read the directions? Did you even read the directions? Right.
So, A Christmas Story. And then the scene where he goes and sees Santa Claus, it is. So I meant that it, in regards to sort of the consumerism, I mean, A Christmas Story, even though it's taking place in the 1960s, it's made in the 1980s. We still see these hallmarks, which we could now perceive in the 21st century as detriments to American culture, as the over consumerism. So like the products, like the radio ads, like getting, the Orphan Annie's little, group for the Ovaltine, the mall, Higbee's Mall. But it's a much more wholesome than obviously the contemporary period when you think of the mall or going out shopping, generally speaking. But it does have those elements certainly in it. I would say much more so than A Christmas Vacation, even though there's aspects. He's going to the mall, he's getting lingerie and all this stuff. But A Christmas Story is sort of rooted in a changing medium. So like he's listening to the radio. He's not watching television.
Yeah, he's listening to the radio. I think it's also it's clear now when as I'm older how much the family is like how much they're actually struggling behind the scenes to keep not to keep food on the I mean, they eat the same meal every night except for Christmas Eve. They eat like meatloaf every single night, and and how the dad, you know, there's not that much talk of money for the kids, but it's clear that they're like sort of working class or a little bit above, you know, working class. But
Right.
when you're a kid, you don't. You're like Ralph. You want presents, and you think that your family can, you know, that you just provide for you, and that everything's just sort of there for you. You don't really understand what it takes to put those things there for you. And I think there's a lot of correlation between that movie and the time we live in now, because you know, times are so tight. Everything has to be accounted for. Every dollar is accounted for. But it's also funny how, like, there were so many. Oftentimes, movies will be generational, and they'll look back like the 20 or 30 years prior. That's where they'll get this sort of weird fashion, like how this movie is made in the 80s, and there are so many movies in the 80s that were set like in the 50s or early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nostalgic thing, and then that made its way into the way people dressed, the way that there were all these like 50s type music bands in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's weird is that Christmas Vacation doesn't do that. It's like wholly of the time. But yeah, it's an interesting movie, and like you said, it is wholesome. And but it's off-putting to me, I think, because of the way that the movie looks on the screen. It's like it's not because it's trying to be the 1950s and it's this earlier generation. It's like everything's kind of rusty looking on the screen.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so it's a little bit off-putting to me.
Well, both of these movies are really discussing sort of inner family dynamics during Christmas, right? So we see the sort of frustrated father who's working, fixing the furnace, you know, irritated, you know, is going to shove the food down the little boy's throat because he won't eat. And then mom's like, what do piggies do?
Again, with the furnace, this was the same in Home Alone. The furnace at the center of the house, right?
Yep.
And you're scared, and like we never see the dad go downstairs, and we see him go downstairs, but we don't see a view of the furnace. And then I guess that's why they did that in Home Alone, because then they took Macaulay Culkin, like, has to be the man of the house, and now he has to take care of the furnace at the center of the house. He's the hearth and home, I suppose, but he's always going down to fight it, to fight the furnace.
So I guess we can just start moving through some of the scenes of A Christmas Story if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let me pull this up. Here we go. And so it opens up. We get a little snowy view of Hammond, Indiana. Going through, we see all the kids. We see the sort of Higsby's Mall here. We see the sort of capitalistic dimension of American culture here, with the tall sort of business building, if you will, no longer the church. Although this opens by singing "Joy to the World," I believe. Let me double check. Both movies actually began with songs directed towards Jesus, which I would think was very interesting. And we'll get to this when we get to Christmas Vacation, because they're singing
"Joy to the World."
Yeah. In this one, they're singing what? I'll find out I gotta be careful because they hit me.
Yeah.
I think it's "Joy to the World" as well. Let me double check. It's right when they flip to the singer there. Oh, Jingle Bells. One up. Here we go.
So we got Sergeant Santa outside.
Jesus Christ is born. Okay. So I thought it was interesting that both movies make reference immediately from the beginning to the sort of Christian elements of our culture and the celebration of the season. I would venture a movie remade, not necessarily remaking these two, but a Christmas movie made in 2023 is going to have very secular references to Christmas.
Yeah, it's going to have it's going to have a Nordic Kris Kringle, who is having flashbacks to the Nordic wars of invasion, like in that movie Deadly Night. I talked about that, Deadly Night and then Silent Night. I did a cover of a slasher Christmas movie, which was called Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is actually a pretty good film.
I'll have to check it out.
But all the Christmas movies now want to talk about like they have flashbacks to the visceral violence of Santa Claus's former life as a Nordic warrior covered in runic tattoos. That's the thing now that they're doing.
Oh, Death Camp. I've never seen this. He says there's a sequel to this movie, and the kid is now the father.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
What's it called?
It's terrible. I forget what it's called, but it's terrible. It's like A Christmas Story 2.
Oh, I've never even seen it.
Yeah. Dad finds an OD'd composer in a hotel room in Chicago. Merry Christmas.
So this is where, again, the sort of American consumerism comes in. All the children, even the parents, gather around this particular corner store at Higbee's Mall to see the sort of electronic display of new gadgets and toys for the kids to Google at. And so I don't want to play too much because we always get caught. But we see the train cars, these wagons. My dad has a wagon from when a little kid. It's all rusted out, but we still have it. I was going to a
flyer.
Yeah, I was going to redo it and repaint it and stuff like that. He's also got like an original scooter from the 50s, but just sort of iconic, seeing the differences. And they're not looking at iPhones and all the electronic gadgets, VR headsets and stuff that you'd imagine the kids are looking at now. And he's over here, Ralphie's daydreaming of the one gift that he would want, which is the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah, and he's also, he's an all-American kid. He's blonde, blue-eyed kid. Of course, he's got glasses, and that's going to play a part in the narrative and the plot structure later on. But it's a wholesome family, and with the radio flyer, and also it's funny how these movies always have like a sort of a Father Christmas character as owner of a toy store, right? Remember, Home Alone 2 had that as a major point.
Yeah, good point. And so he's reading his little pamphlet here on an ad for the Red Ryder BB gun, of which then he's trying to scheme and come up with ways in which he can plant the seed in his parents' mind that this is the gift he wants for Christmas. And so we see that mom's yelling for the boys to come down. And so he puts it in mom's like female magazine. Interestingly, he lays it on top of a photo of all these women on the beach, which is kind of funny. Here they are. So all these women are topless, laying on the beach. Are they nudists? I think they're totally nude.
Is that our Sears catalog? Everybody was talking about Sears.
I'm not sure, but it's also interesting because as we'll get to the prize that his father wins. Oh, Look magazine. So he puts it on, and look, the parents aren't necessarily sleeping in the same bed.
Of course, that was the 50s, yeah.
Which was true for what I forget which TV show. The first time that they showed married couples sleeping in the same bed, because depicting societal standards back then, they didn't show people sleeping together. Although it's normal that married couples sleep in the same bed, but we see this right here in this movie, and so he's trying to plot and scheme in ways that they can see what he's wanting for Christmas. And of course, they come down, and Dad's talking about a trivia that what was it again? That it was like the cousin's name of the horse of one of the, what was it?
I don't remember.
I don't want to play it too much, but his mom knows right away. Here it is. But his dad, again, he's going to end up winning a prize from this sort of trivia that his wife's going to help him with the answers for. And he's going to get this leg, right? The leg lamp. And his wife is scandalized by this, again, demonstrating the chasm between modern sensibilities and what's at least being depicted in this movie. That's certainly something I picked up on.
Well, my dad told me that my great grandmother's favorite show, I think, was Perry Mason.
Perry Mason, but that's the first one where they slept in the same bed, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah, because he says that the first time that he was on the screen in he had a t-shirt on. Like he took off his dress shirt and he had like just a white t-shirt, and she was scandalized because she got up and turned it off. Oh, such trash on television, right? because Stanley Kowalski, Marlon Brando made that famous in like 1953 or whatever in Streetcar Named Desire. But yeah, so but the point is that, you know, I Love Lucy and all these shows, like they went to separate beds. They do that in Caddyshack as well. They go to separate beds, separate bedrooms. And so it's funny, the emphasis on the wholesome, even in light of, you know, being in an 80s movie, is like, I know that there's one part of the movie that the censors, they had to skirt around the censors, because even though it fit the censors for 1980s, it wouldn't have fit the censors for the 1950s and 60s when the movie was made.
Right.
So they had to try to stick to character here.
Right. And Keenan, our brother, the Keenan Beats, throws in $10, says Merry Christmas. And A Christmas Story, the ho 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 that Santa does before they kick the kid down the slide.
Yeah.
So sinister. It always creeped me out as a kid.
That's as sinister as the ho 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 in Die Hard, right? Painted on his shirt.
But again, it's true. I remember watching it as a kid, and that was a sort of sinister thing that I always remembered. And it again highlights the sort of commodification, the consumer, where it's moving into your Walmart Santa, and he's really disillusioned by the kids. You know, get this kid off my lap.
Yeah.
And it's just this speed, getting through, you know, getting like a conveyor belt, getting the kids on the lap, tell them what you want, and then get down, slide down the slide.
Did you have to do that? Did you have to go sit on Santa's lap anywhere when you were a kid?
I think I did it a couple times, but I grew up, the neighbors had older boys. So my best friend was a year older, and then he had much older brothers. So I found out Santa wasn't real at quite an early age.
Well, we had a department store here called Tallheimer's that was just like the store they show in the movie. And they had a Santa Claus who was there for like 40 years. He just died like 10 years. This old man. But everybody would line up, and you got to sit on Santa's lap and take a picture. I hated it. I hated having to do that, man. I thought it was awful. So yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah. So here we see the scene kind of getting a catch of the family. We have the sort of American all-star mother. He makes a point that she hadn't had a hot meal in 15 years because she's always serving the kids, serving her husband, making warm meals, wholesome meals. And this is the point where we see the father is really interested in getting, answering these sort of trivia questions so that he can get the major prize, of which he thinks he's going to get a bowling alley. And he ends up getting the leg lamp. But we kind of get a snapshot into the family here, the family dynamics. And it is a sort of traditional masculine father, you know, not incredibly emotionally aware, but at the same time, that's kind of what more boys need, that the sort of stoic family man father who just kind of works and does his thing.
One thing you mentioned earlier, which I think is coming up now, is the lack of the TV. And, you know, they're all, I mean, the radio is going to be replaced by the TV, but we saw the living room and the radio is like on a stand and they're kind of centered around the radio. And that's perfect for like the fireside chats, you know, a very Rooseveltian, you know, Eisenhower-esque America, where this device is put into every home and they're all sitting together and they're all centered around this communication device, like from outside, that's sort of appealing and it's like reflecting their family values, and it's appealing to them and telling them what to do in a larger sense. But then you transfer to the kitchen and they're all centered around the dad. You know, they eat breakfast together, they eat dinner together.
Right.
The mother is serving them all meals. You know, he's dressed like he's going to go to work. He's sort of emotionally disengaged, like you said, which is is much healthier than the reactionary sense of where we've become today. Right.
Parents are like trying to always be the friends of children and ask their 3-year-old, you know, deep questions about, well, Johnny, you know, it wasn't nice that you hit all those people and you acted up.
Yeah.
But you promise you won't do it again.
And, or even like the idea of, because we live in this snitch culture now, you know, of telling and snitching, and where, you know, neighbors are snitching on each other, and all these people have been empowered through Karanka, you know, to do this sort of thing. This is the opposite, right? It's like, you can imagine them telling, you know, trying to tell to their dad, and their dad, doesn't want to hear it, and he's telling him to stand up for himself. And look at him. I mean, this guy looks like a sort of 50s rock, right? He's just like, he's kind of craggly, he's disengaged. He's all about business, but he loves his family. So
clearly loves his family. Yeah. Still a family man. So this kind of breakfast shot, we get a sneak peek into the family dynamics, or it might be dinner. I think it actually is dinner. And then, so I had a comment right here in regards to Ralphie. Then his daydream, interestingly enough, is protecting the family with his dream of getting the Red Ryder BB gun. Now, it's obviously a sort of, fanciful, funny daydream. But my point is, it still has a sort of masculine characteristic there, that the boy's certainly not dreaming about being a girl or wearing dresses. He's thinking about, oh, if I had the gun, if anybody came to harm my family, then I can be the one that goes out there and shoots the bad guys. And so he goes out into this, gets lost into this daydream where he sees the criminals, shimmying down in the back. You see the gang there, and oh no, Ralphie, he has a gun. And so, it's kind of funny. But I thought my takeaway was, again, what exactly a daydream was for a little boy. And, the idea that the boy's going to protect the family, in a way, sort of rise to be the man of the house. Again, I would be hard pressed to imagine many contemporary films would still have that. And we see the same thing, the child sort of being the adult figure in the Home Alone films that we covered.
Yeah, they do a weird meta thing here also, I never noticed, which is that the movie's filmed in the 1980s. It's set in the, mid-century, but his daydreams are 1920s silent movie era. So the bad guys aren't speaking. They're kind of moving in a stilted fashion. They're dressed in the black and white prison garb of the 1920s. And he's seeing it as like a bygone time, because even in his day, because I guess I forget that this is not first person Ralphie now. It's from the point of view or the perspective of the guy narrating his life when he was a kid. Right. So it's sort of a narrative within the narrative. But like you said, I mean, the daydreams of a kid, this is probably like what Russian and Chinese families are like now. Just like the son is daydreaming about cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians and stuff, and or their version, and that he's protecting the family, like you said. I mean, my great aunt gave me a Tech 9 rubber bullet gun when I was 10 years old. I mean, that was a toy for a kid. It was outlawed after that because people started robbing banks with them. But like that was acceptable when I was 10. And I thought it was the coolest, it was the coolest thing ever. And all I dreamed about was like, playing Navy SEALs in the backyard and like making forts and stuff. And you wonder, I mean, there's still kids like that, but you wonder where all that's gone. Obviously, they don't want that.
Right. No. Yeah. Great point. Veritas Antenna says, yeah, his daydream is about the TV and radio he watches and listens to. But it's so relatable as a little boy. I remember when I was real little, my dad came home one day from work and he just surprised me with like these toy pistols and a toy shotgun that shot. There's like the pure rubber darts, and that you'd have to lick it. And then when you shot it, it would stick to something.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I played with that all day. It came with little targets, and you'd set them up in different parts of the room and shoot them, and always envisioning like the scenarios like this. So very relatable as a little boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving forward. So we get this little daydream. We see that little Ralphie is very obsessed with getting the Red Ryder BB gun. And then he always comes back to reality. The father has to go. It must be in the morning or something. I forget. I just watched it, but I forget if this was morning or evening. And then, of course, the furnace starts going out. And he's like, oh, it's closed. Who, damn kids, who closed the furnace? And, of course, it could have been the wife. Could have been the kids. We don't really know. But, indeed, they closed the furnace. And so he again, and the idea that as soon as something happens, we see this sort of traditional relationship structure. The man goes and handles the problem.
Yeah.
The mother stays with the children, keeps everything in order, and the father has to go down into the abyss, down into the basement, and correct whatever's gone wrong.
like he's going to war. Yeah.
Well, just as a motif, though, right?
Yeah.
So, and then here's the famous little brother scene where he has to put on the snowsuit and his mom's trying hard as heck to get him in there. Look how bundled he is with that winter sweater. And so again, we see a stay-at-home mother taking care of the children, getting them dressed appropriately to walk to school. And this is quite comical again because he can't put his arms down once he gets it on. So he's there. You go. He stands there with.
So this is like South Park. I mean, this is like Kenny.
Yeah.
From South Park here.
So and then you see the older boy. Of course, he's really conscious, just like of the bunny suit, of how his friends are going to perceive him at school, right? So the school dynamics, where he has the dorky little brother that I assume that a lot of people. I didn't have a younger brother. I only had an older sister, but just seeing different family dynamics because the youngest one was babied and coddled the most. Then he's kind of mocked by the older brothers. His mother's always trying to protect him, make sure nothing happens. And so we kind of see this dynamic as well. And then this leads on to their walk to the school here, where we see the other boys. And this one comes out and says, "Oh man, I talked to my dad. He said if you put your tongue on something metal, it's definitely going to stick. One time he saw somebody do it on a railroad track and the fire department had to come." He's like, "Oh man, your dad doesn't know what he's talking about." And
have you ever seen someone do that?
I have not seen somebody do that in person.
Yeah, I've seen somebody do that. They had to come and like blowtorch the flagpole and warm it up for the because if he was going to tear his tongue out.
Right. That's what I heard is that you got to use like hot water or something in that situation.
It was some dumbass after watching this movie.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Marcus Antonio says I've done it.
Yeah.
Of course. All right. So moving forward here, again, we're going to be able to get through both of these movies are only an hour and a half long. So they're quite short films compared to some of the other ones we reviewed that are like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
So the big brother has to come because the little brother's whining about how he falls over in the snow. Somebody pushed him and he can't get up. And then we see a scene back at the elementary school here.
Yeah.
And all the kids are playing pranks on the teacher, putting in fake teeth, of which everybody finds funny and giggling about. You know, and then she turns around, forces everybody to take the teeth out and puts them in the drawer right there where you see.
Dude, I got a drawer. I mean, I teach, high schoolers, but I've got a drawer just like that.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. With fake teeth and vampire teeth and baseballs and all kinds of stuff in it.
Are those things that you've confiscated for the kids, or are those your own little toys?
Yeah, those are both. I'm gonna go home and play with my teeth.
So again, we see a very wholesome traditional structure here in regards to the little schoolhouse. And then here's the boys. We see the boys get around, no girls around, and what begins challenging each other. Double dog, triple dog dare. Of course, this little boy does not believe this little boy's father that his tongue's actually going to stick. And then once he gets triple dog dared, well, now it's on. He almost has to do it. So this is the scene, very iconic, of the little boy where he decides he's going to actually try it and stick his tongue on the metal pole. And one of the things that I was thinking about is I wonder if they really did it in the film, because the boy pulls his tongue and it's actually stuck to the pole. It looks like.
Yeah. I read about what they did. I know that when there's a big old truck going by. Big old truck. I'm down here in Mississippi. All right. So there's I know that the scene where he's like spitting chewing tobacco, that he had real chewing tobacco. They gave him, and then he got sick afterwards, and then they had to retake it and do it with raisins. But I read something about this, but I can't remember. I'm still laughing about you saying, "Are those your own toys?" In the because I had a fake cockroach that I would prank people with, and I had it on a desk the other day, and this girl freaked out about it, dad said, "Look down on your desk. There's a cockroach on your desk. I saw it climb out of your backpack." And she freaked out. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? And I took it away and said, "I don't know. I think it went back in your backpack." It was a joke for me.
Oh, BLA terrorizing the high school kids. Can't get enough of it. That poor girl's going to be scarred for her life. So here we see again, he'd stick the tongue. And this is where I thought it was it. I mean, I don't know how they did this, but the little boy starts pulling on it, and clearly his tongue is stuck. You couldn't just, fake whether they used maybe some adhesive or something. Maybe it wasn't, really frozen. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, dang, I wonder what they did to actually pull that scene off. But then you see the school bell ring, and all the boys leave him out there and run back because they don't want to be late for school, or for class because of the teacher. And then she's asking, where is he? Then they point outside. She's horrified to see that the little boy's flailing around with his tongue stuck to the fire pole or the flagpole. And here comes the fire department and the police. And then everybody's worried that they're going to get in trouble. But of course, like little boys do, you never rat out who was to blame. So I'm sure the teacher had an idea. But yeah, so it moves on here. And then here we get introduced to the bullies. So now the little boys, we see the little boy's tongue wrapped in cotton. And we get introduced to the bully right here with the yellow eyes, the terrifying yellow eyes. And he throws down the little brother, mocks the kids. They're terrified. They try to run away. And here's his little henchman. And you see that the boys are terrified, and they sort of flail around and avoid any conflict possible. And so we see the bigger boy force the other kid to yell uncle, which he does several times, and he keeps harassing him and then throws him to the ground, and then they all run off. So
yeah, that kid looks like a bully too. I mean, he's very well cast. He's got this cat eyes. His face is all gnarly. He's got a coonskin cap on, mid-50s. He's got his little flat cap newsboy henchman who's shorter than him. That kid's going to grow up to be Joe Pesci in Casino.
Right. This is the early Sticky Bandits right here.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. These kids are the perfect kids that are going to grow up and fight in Vietnam a few years later. Right.
So, this is pretty relatable too. Any boy grew up knows that there are bullies, and often at one point or another, all of us were bullied by somebody. And so this is going to come back where Ralphie is going to get so upset that he's actually going to fight and beat up the big bully, of which is going to end the harassment, which is again another motif that is true, that the bully doesn't stop until you punch him in the face.
Right.
Generally speaking, standing up to our fears. So another sort of traditional masculine feature there in regards to Ralphie. Now they all run home, and he's quick to check the mail to see if that his little surprise being part of the Orphan Annie Ovaltine group came in, which it did not. So now he's writing out his homework on what it is that he wants for Christmas, and writing out how much he wants that Red Ryder. And at the same time, while Ralphie's waiting for his surprise, his dad comes home finding out that he won. He actually won the trivia.
Just back about the bullying thing. One thing that I often ruminate on this, and it's that the movies, and when you're growing up, they make it seem like that, that if you're going to punch somebody, it's the worst thing in the world, and you're going to get in so much trouble for it. And I kind of wish that, going back, there are certain times where I'm sure everybody wishes that they, you look back on it as an adult and you're like, so fucking what? Excuse my language, but like, you got to stand up for yourself.
Right.
The consequences are going to be outweighed by your dignity. Right. And one thing I'll say is that, just from my perspective, is that schools now, there's a lot about, that they talk about bullying and all this stuff. But one thing that is common amongst, let's say, lower income schools is that there isn't any of that, because people are quick to stand up for themselves. And so I think that's a positive thing that's come out of it. But movies like this just are interesting to me because, it takes a lot for him to be able to get to the point where he becomes like the hero of his own story.
Right.
But it pays off for him. So
Right. And I want to give a special shout out to Jason Scholl, who throws in $5 and says, "Merry Christmas, David and Henley." Well, thank you, Jason Scholl. Merry Christmas to you, brother.
Merry Christmas, brother. Appreciate it.
And we had, let me pull this up. Somebody sent in a super chat talking about the flagpole scene. And John Vandershoot throws in $3 and says, "The tongue on the pole was a vacuum in a hole." Oh, okay. Interesting. I did not know that. So that makes sense why I was able to sort of pull away and it looked like the tongue was actually stuck. So thank you, John Vandershoot, for that and clarifying. I did not realize that.
This might be interesting to somebody, but one thing about like stage combat or combat in movies that's interesting is that like the person getting beaten up is doing all the work in the scene. So like if you in a movie, if you grab somebody by the hair and you're smashing their head into a table, their hand is still, it's just loose and still. And what they do is like you grab the person who's grabbing your head and you're the one doing the work, smashing your own head into the table.
Oh.
So it takes it takes all of the impetus out of them. They don't have to do anything, but it's effective. Just for the drama nerds out there.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we have you on. And so Ralphie sees dad's home from work. He's excited, and you see the kids come down, want to see what dad's excited about, and he's stoked because he's going to win a bowling alley. He just won the trivia, which we see the neighbors' dogs. That's another super relatable thing. I grew up, our neighbors, they buy collies. They have like little Shelties, which are like miniature border collies, and they have a fenced-in backyard. They do not walk the dogs, and all they do is bark and bark and bark. And that has been that was my childhood growing up. Is the damn neighbor's dog? All they do is bark. So we didn't have all the hound dogs like this movie did, coming into your actual house, coming onto your property. But the annoying neighbor's dog, I think so many people can relate to. So the dad shuts the dog's ear into the door, kicks him out. There's like 7 or 8 big hound dogs. And so then we see the little boy playing with his food, won't eat. Dad gets a little bit annoyed, tells him he's going to get a crowbar and his screwdriver, and he's just going to shove it down his throat if he isn't going to eat. And the mom's like, "Well, what do little piggies do?" Which is in a way the correct role of mother and father relationships. The mother's much more emotionally sensitive and aware, whereas the father is just to the point, and he's the enforcer. And of course, the fact that his dad's getting upset, both of these boys don't want dad to get upset because there's real consequences when dad's upset.
Yes.
So this is going to become true when Ralphie's terrified that dad's going to kill him because he got in a fight with the bully and beat him up, which actually turns out to be his mother was glad, or at least in somewhat she protects him. And I think it's probably because she's proud that he was able to stand up and face his bully.
Yeah.
So again, just a small little family scene here. Not much to unpack from it, really. And then dad's gift finally arrives.
Fragile.
Fragile must be
Look,
French.
It's Italian. Yeah.
Or Italian. Yeah. Maybe it's Italian.
Fragile.
No, honey, I think it says fragile.
Fancy.
And so here it is, the iconic leg lamp. And so we see the father's so proud of his new gift, and of course he puts it right into the front window.
Look at all the cords. So that's Christmas Vacation right there with all the things.
Yep.
Look how many things are plugged into that wall.
Absolutely. And of course all the power going out there, or at least blowing a fuse. But then he gets everything fixed just how he wants, and he goes out into the street to celebrate his iconic gift, of which is, you can tell his wife is totally embarrassed by this gift. Thinks it's, as she says later, the ugliest gift, or the ugliest lamp she's ever seen. And the father's out here, this is my trophy. This is my trophy. Oh, your trophy? What is it? Well, it's a lamp. Oh, you got a trophy lamp. Hey, he got a trophy lamp.
The neighborhood.
So all the neighbors,
yeah,
sort of standing out here staring at this leg lamp, of which he's so proud of. And then it moves to Ralphie and his little brother listening to the radio show of Annie or Orphan Annie and the Ovaltine ad that sponsors the show, of which they want to be part of the. I forget what it's called exactly, but basically the group of like child detectives. And if you drink enough Ovaltine and send in whatever it is that they need to send in, then you get this little decoder, and you can be a spy, you can be an investigator with Orphan Annie, of which he is so excited to get, just like the father is so excited to win his prize.
Yeah, it's like Cracker Jack boxes and decoder rings and Dick Francis, camera watches
And you see here, so now he's daydreaming about the paper describing that he wanted the Red Ryder BB gun. He's envisioning his teacher. So look at what Ralphie writes it in, a nice red little book pamphlet where everybody else is just writing it on a normal piece of paper. And he's expecting an A+, that the teacher's going to read his work and she's going to be astounded. Oh my gosh, Ralphie, that's amazing. And he goes to turn his paper in. He's very proud of himself, really excited. Now, of course, his mother's already said he's going to shoot his eye out. Now the boys again are running to avoid the bullies after school. The wife, embarrassed, doesn't want the lamp to be turned on as they go out. We got to save electricity. Of course, that irritates the father. Here's the scene in which they go and get their Christmas tree. The dad's a barterer, right?
Yeah.
You don't get that much in American culture anymore.
Oh my gosh, we had that last night at the restaurant. Oh man.
Did you barter your prices?
What's this 9? What's this 9%? What's this? Why'd you write 9 here? Oh, but he's right though. Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes kids are embarrassed of their dads trying to barter and make deals, when they're obviously trying to be ripped off by all these people. And it's something that I'm older now that I can appreciate.
Yeah, that's true.
And oftentimes, if you go out somewhere and you're with your girlfriend or your wife, or especially, I guess, your kids, they're embarrassed about that. Just take it. Just pay for it. Whatever it is. But everybody's out to rip everybody off.
It's true.
Now, so
it's
true.
So
he's the alpha dad in his family, so he's trying to take care of business. Good for him.
And eventually they get the flat tire here. And of course, this is taking place in Indiana, of which the Indy 500 and Indy race cars originated. So racing in the state of Indiana, basketball and racing are by far the top 2 sports in the state. And so the father, as they make a comment, dad always thinks that, that he's part of the Indy 500. And so they got the flat tire and he tells his wife, 4 minutes. I'll have it changed in 4 minutes. He goes out there to start changing the tire. His mother tells Ralphie to go out there and help. And so we see that classic scenario of the little boy trying to help his dad, of which he really just makes a mess. And, in this sense, it's really not Ralphie's fault. The father ends up hitting the hubcap there and flipping the bolts or the lug nuts, rather, the lug nuts from the tire into the air, of which goes into the snow, and little Ralphie says the F word, F word, and he let it slip.
Yeah.
And the irony here is, again, he's going to blame a friend that gets beat by his mother. So Ralphie then has to put soap in the mouth, which I'm sure parents don't do anymore. And when his mother, forces him to say where he heard the word, of course, it's not dad who says it all the time, every time he gets angry, of which I think most people that grew up in a nuclear family can probably relate, is that when dad gets angry, things start to fly. And so he really learned it from his dad. He's, again, just being like his father, right?
Now, did you ever get your mouth washed out with soap?
One time. Yeah.
I had it big time. It wasn't like this at all. I was conscious of the fact that I wasn't because when I pictured it, I always thought like there'd be soapy water washing out my mouth or something like that, but that's not the way it was. And I was in 4th grade and I cussed somebody out, and the teacher heard me say it, and she made me write, "I will not say the word," on a piece of paper 500 times. And I missed recess because of it. And I had to write it over and over, 500 times, count it. And when I handed it to her, she tore up the paper in front of me. And then I had to tell my mom at home, and then the teacher called. And then when my mom heard it, she said, "Get in that room." And she made me get Ivory soap, put it in my mouth, and she said, bite down. I had to bite the ivory soap in half and then chew it in my mouth until my dad got home. And then when my dad got home, it was a whole other thing. But like, yeah, I still don't cuss in front of my parents because of that.
Well, well, that's what being a good boy means.
That's right.
I learned my lesson. There was one time I did the soap, of which it had teeth marks. You had to put it in your mouth, bite down on it. Didn't have to chew it.
Yeah.
But it was disgusting. And I remember that as a little kid.
Yeah.
And my parents had a ping pong paddle and a belt. So, yeah, always kind of push the limits with mom. But if dad was angry, that's a whole different battle.
My dad had a weightlifting belt. And I said, oh no, please don't tell Dad. Don't tell Dad. Oh God.
Yeah, lye soap was something else. That's for sure. That's for sure. So again, another sort of iconic moment here that most people can relate to some degree. And again, look how modest his mother always dressed. She was always dressed very modestly. Then she goes and calls the parents of the other little boy, which again, something that probably does not happen at all anymore. And the parents take the parents' word for it, right? So the mother doesn't question her. She says, "Oh, he did," and then you start hearing her beating her little boy for teaching Ralphie the F word, of which again, the only person she doesn't want to blame is actually the father, who her son's becoming more and more like. And that's a motif throughout the movie. So whether it be about winning the Ovaltine, whether it be about using the profanity, or it be about the fact that the dad says, "Well, I got my BB gun when I was 8," and of course the father then is continuing in a way, not a tradition, so to speak, but certainly a sort of rite of passage to him at that early age, just like he did. So we see the motif of the son becoming like the father.
Yeah.
Which isn't going to be carried over in Christmas Vacation.
No.
You're going to have a totally different dynamic. So Ralphie's upset that he had to have all that soap in his mouth. You see he's crying. And then this is also relatable, right? When you get punished. I remember when I got punished as a kid, I'm thinking I'm going to run away. And then that's going to show my parents. Looking back, you're always appreciative that your parents actually did discipline you, so you don't turn out like so many of the people nowadays that really don't understand consequences. Well, as a little kid, you always envision how this is going to come back and haunt your parents because they're doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And this is where Ralphie pretends that he's blind, right? He's daydreaming that he's blind and maybe he's homeless. You see his coat has a hole in it. And it's all because his parents gave him soap poisoning.
Well, the parents are also a team too. You know, they're one unit. So although they're distinct individuals and they have their roles, this movie shows that the parents are always together on issues.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
You know, because now, of course, it's, ask your mom, ask your dad. What are they going to say? And of course, kids being kids will try and play off the parents to one another, if they even have two parents, or if they're two parents.
Yeah, even if they have two parents. Yeah, that's a great point.
And oftentimes now, of course, with broken families, the parents will do that. They'll play off, one another. And the play Raisin in the Sun, which is around the same time this is set, around 1953, is about that, how the family breaks down because the parents play off one another, and the dad tries to gain favor with his son over his wife, which is a very childish, thing to do, and a childish dynamic within their family. But strong families, I suppose, always are one central unit, and they never waver. If the father said something and the mother knows that, then she's going to stick to it no matter what.
Well, thank you so much. Being in Motion throws in 10 pounds and says 2023, the year I found Jesus and you two bozos, the big three. Happy Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas to you, Being in Motion. Thank you very much, brother, and I'm glad that you have found myself and Bazed Lit Analyzer and all the great content he creates. So,
oi, listen up! Happy Christmas to you, Being in Motion, for that 10 quid. All the Christmas visits you this year. Appreciate you.
So here we see, this is after the soap scene. Again, he's really trying to warm up to the teacher, brings her an entire fruit basket where all the other kids are bringing the little apples, little Christmas gifts, where Ralphie brings an entire fruit basket, thinking again he's going to get an A+ on his paper on the Red Rider, and he'll be able to show his mom that look how good he did in school, and the teacher supports him. Of course, this leads to her telling to go sit down. We see another scene of them running from the bullies, and now he gets home, and Annie Orphan and the sort of decoder finally comes in the mail. And so he's so excited, just like the father, listening to the radio program, lays out the code and numbers of what letters the decoder is going to help you find out what is the secret message. And then he goes to the bathroom where he says the only place a 9-year-old can find privacy. And he starts decoding the message. And what is the message? The message is be sure to can I stop? Right. I'm not going to be able to, but it says, be sure to drink your Ovaltine, of which he's so disappointed.
Ovaltine is nasty, man.
Yeah.
Ovaltine's gross. But look how clever it is. Like how big companies, corporations, and communication all tie in together to do this problem solving stuff, right? Where kids have to go through so many stages to like earn their prize, right? They're critical they're thinking critically. They have to go through all these, like they're deciphering things just to find out the treasure, which is a kind of good training for later, and is a perfect contrast to now when it's just like the worst possible thing just shows up on TikTok there for you to see, and there's no thinking. So
yeah, exactly. The quality of content, even though it is a crummy commercial, as Slowboy Whiteboard highlights, that's what he says after he decodes it. It is much more wholesome than the kind of content kids are getting today, which is basically taking away their innocence. You know, this movie doesn't destroy the innocence of anybody. To the most degree is when Ralphie's grabbing the lamp and he keeps touching it and the mom slaps his hand. But shows you again how more sensitive they were then and how desensitized we are today, where, you know, kids are watching naked women. I mean, you can go on Twitter and there's porn everywhere.
Right.
So it's like,
TikTok is like live leak, you know, straight from the war, you know, war crimes in your face or whatever, you know, for any 12-year-old doom scrolling TikTok. But it's just there. There's no, you know, if they know how to find it, it's there. There's no searching. There's no like decoding, deciphering. There's no symbolism. There's no like going on quests. I guess the quests are, you know, in video games. So that's something. But, you know, this is all about like going yourself and playing outside, and then you have to find a ring, and then you have to match it to the time that the radio is going to announce it, and then you have to decode it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, you know, for later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's the scene where the father comes out of the furnace, working on the furnace. The mother yells, something breaks. He goes in there, and his beloved trophy is broken. Now, we never know, did the wife do it on purpose or accident? But you can see the father is horrified.
That's how he clutches it like a child.
And has to run out and get super glue because he accuses his wife of using up all the super glue so that he can't put it back together. So it seems as though he already believes that she did it on purpose. And this is where she kind of comes to a boiling point and tells him it's the ugliest lamp I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And here's the scene where he tries to put it all back together, but it collapses. And so it's over. And then he goes and buries it out by the barn in the backyard. So now we're back on our way to school. We see the bullies again confront the boys, and one of them has to pay the piper, of which he's going to get his arm pushed behind him, and he's going to have to yell uncle, the same one that actually had his tongue stuck. So now the grades come back from their little writing report, and he got a C+. And what does the teacher say? P.S. You'll shoot your eye out. And so then he goes into another daydream of, wow, the teacher is actually a witch, and that his mother, a sort of clown or joker,
jester,
jester, must be working behind the scenes and has told her about the gift, of which wasn't the case. But he's so upset about the C+. He's so upset about the teacher telling him he's going to shoot his eye out, that when he actually comes up to the bully who smashes or throws a snowball right in his face, that was the breaking point. He couldn't handle it anymore. And so the bully's making fun of him, telling him, "What are you going to do? Cry? You cry, baby? You cry, baby?" Of which he is crying, but he begins to take it out on him, punches the other kid off, and just clobbers this little boy, gives him a bloody nose.
Yeah.
And here his mother comes and stops him. And all the kids from the school saw it. So now the bully, his reputation is ruined. Little Ralphie just destroyed him, bloodied his nose, and he ends up being the crybaby, in which he's crying.
And then Ralphie grew up to be Charles Whitman, the Texas clock tower shooter. he goes into a rage here, which is pretty, it's pretty wild.
And then we see his little brother hiding underneath the sink because he's so afraid Daddy's going to kill Ralphie. Daddy's going to kill Ralphie, of which the mother promises Daddy's not going to kill Ralphie. And the time when this father finally comes home from work, we see that he goes to sit down expecting to be berated and punished by his stoic father. But his mother plays it off, says, "What happened today?" "Well, little Ralphie, he got in a fight." "A fight? Well, did you hear that the Bears are playing the Packers this Sunday?"
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that should be a pretty good game.
A great family. And by the way, the guy playing the dad is so good in this movie. You can see why. Thank goodness they didn't get Jack Nicholson to play the dad. It would have been a completely different movie here, and doubled the budget for the movie. But oftentimes it's like the character actors are so much stronger than the big name actors, because we're watching a family that we believe is a family instead of watching an actor playing a family.
Very believable family. Absolutely. And so we see the mother actually covers for Ralphie. Ralphie does not get in trouble for fighting the bully. And he said, "I viewed my mother differently from that day forward." And so now he comes up with a clever idea. Well, if my mom and my dad won't give me the Red Ryder, I'll ask Santa Claus. He'll get me the Red Ryder BB gun. And so here we see very Indiana with the tractor pulling through the parade here, the local parade. And you're right. We see the same characters, right? As somebody highlighted, Wizard of Oz. We see the teacher was the witch from the Wizard of Oz. We see the Wizard of Oz characters here. They're attacking Mickey Mouse. And so we see that the boy is sort of conflates fantasy entertainment with reality, as naturally a young boy does.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take him to the mall, to Higbee's Mall, to get in line to go see Santa. And so Andrew did a voiceover of this over on his channel where he used like the audio. I think he used an AI to take the audio of the narrator of this movie, and then he wrote his own little script through this scene. It was hilarious. Inappropriate, but hilarious. As Andrew naturally is. So, but again, here we see another witch character of the Wizard of Oz coming through, and then Ralphie says, "Yeah, don't bother me." And she's like, "Okay," and she just kind of turns away. And so they're standing in line, kid with the fighter hat on, the pilot hat on.
Yeah.
And
I guess the Wizard of Oz is a nod to the short story. I think the short story is like set in it must be set in like 1939. I think. Isn't that the year of Wizard of Oz?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I think it is. So that's why they have so much Wizard of Oz in here. But anyway, yeah.
So,
but it's children's stories and a fantasy sequence, and we have we're weaving between dream and reality, so it makes sense, I suppose.
And so here's the Santa scene in which all the little boys and girls are coming up, and we can see Santa is annoyed by these little kids. One get these little muskrats off his lap, and then he and then his little helper here, the guy in the elf suit, just kind of shoves them right down the slide. Which you could totally see happening really at any point, whether today or then. So Ralphie's finally waiting, finally gets brought up to Santa Claus, of which he totally freezes and Santa's like, well, what do you want, kid? He can't think of anything. Nothing can come out of his mouth. And so Santa says, a football? I'll get you a football. And he kind of shakes his head, yes. And then this iconic scene where he's getting ready to get shoved down. And then he turns around and tells the Santa, no, I want a Red Ryder BB gun. And then the Santa looks at him, kicks him in the face.
Yeah.
Says, you're going to shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah.
And then they're disillusioned. And so his little brother was screaming and crying down the slide. And now you see Dad, and this was interesting too. So Dad is then coming in with the Wizard of Oz characters, right? Where is it? Right here. I think I missed it. There it is. So he's got the Tin Man and the Scarecrow arm in arm as they're walking through the mall here. Little Dorothy. There they are.
Yeah.
And we see the brothers just sitting there disillusioned with their Santa experience.
It's interesting. It's like they've seen. So I guess Santa Claus is the Wizard of Oz, right? He's seen behind the curtain, and behind the curtain is a boot on your face.
True. That's a good take there. Mm. So the movie's pretty much wrapping up at this point. Like I said, it's there's not a whole lot to sort of review or decode in this movie. This is interesting. Of course, the father's putting the tree together for Christmas. He's got the star crooked, and he's kind of a klutz here. The power goes out. He switches the fuse. Everything's back on. He thinks the blue lights are green. The wife's saying, "You mean the blue lights?" No, I'm not colorblind. Well, I'm not colorblind either. And so it just typical holiday conversation in a family.
Somebody said they'd never seen Wizard of Oz. If you've never seen Wizard of Oz, you don't have to go and watch the analysis that I did with Jay on his channel. We did Wizard of Oz and Return to Oz. And JC Owens said, anytime one sees Wizard of Oz imagery, one should probably pay attention. Yeah, I mean, because Wizard of Oz is definitely, we're seeing behind the curtain, and there's a sort of a Gnostic quest and a sort of a journey going on here. Now that's used partly for nostalgic purposes in this, like I said, with the time that the original short story this was based on, to give us an indication of the time, but also because Ralph is growing up and in the midst of this. It's a coming of age story. Even though he stays the same age, he goes through a huge process of change, like over the course of the movie. He stood up for himself. He finds out that he does shoot his eye out, but he has to deal with the consequences. He sees how his family is able to provide for him at Christmas, and he's able to see what it takes, like through school, through bullies. There's a whole lot thrown into this one movie, even though he's a small kid. Yep. And so he sort of sees behind the curtain and then sees what Oz, this magical land of Oz, and like what Christmas time is, and then is able to see like what it really stands for.
Right. That's a great point. And so they got the Christmas tree together, and they tell him, well, we heard Santa Claus is across the street, but he won't come here until you guys go to bed. So the kids run off to bed for the next morning, Christmas Day, which we never make it to Christmas Day in the movie Christmas Vacation, but a beautiful white Christmas. They go downstairs. Of course, Ralphie's disappointed. He gets all these gifts, especially from his aunt, where he gets a pink bunny suit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
His brother gets all the little toys and gifts that he wants, but Ralphie's gets clothes and everything that he didn't want.
Yeah.
Here's his little bunny suit. We'll probably be able to stop when he's dressed up in it. The mom wants him to go put it on. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. It should be right here. There it is. Ralphie in his bunny suit. We can all relate. The Christmas gift we never wanted. And of course, mom wants us to go put it on and see how it looks. And then his dad's like, he looks like a monstrosity, a pink monster. You want to wear that? No. Well, go take that thing off.
Yeah.
So we see the dad speaking a little bit of reason. Little brother's totally conked out. Ralphie's sitting in between his parents, and his dad goes, well, I think I see one over behind the desk there. And of course, it's the one thing that Ralphie has been waiting for, the Red Ryder BB gun. And he finally gets it. And this was actually, this toy I was looking up was made in Michigan by Daisy.
Uh-huh.
And so this was a huge boost to, again, the purchases of young boys wanting to get their little BB gun. But it's true that was true for me in the 90s. Wanting to get the BB gun was always a dream. And of course, he goes out. Dad's more concerned about the turkey and the food. And then here we go. Ralphie shoots the metal sign. Not a great idea. And the little BB.
The neighbor here was shooting a BB gun yesterday out in the field behind my house. I thought that's very wholesome. Good for him.
Very wholesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good for little boys to play with guns, learn how to shoot. And of course, he then steps on his glasses because the BB, you can see over here, came back and cracked the one lens. And he steps on the other, and now his glasses are broken, and he keeps saying, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then he comes up with a story that an icicle fell on his face, of which here he says it worked. His mom believes him that it was the icicle. He's able to keep his gun. And the movie kind of ends with the dogs coming in here, destroying the turkey, which Dad's had enough. Time to go to the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Of which they eat a little Peking duck, right? So he called it Chinese turkey. Uh-huh. But when I was in Beijing, when I traveled to Beijing, when I was in China, we went to a very high-end restaurant there because duck is a delicacy in China, especially when you go to Beijing. It's called Peking duck. Peking is really a poor phonetic translation of Beijing, Peking, but you'll see that sometimes, Peking stuff. Well, it has to do with Beijing. And you go to these restaurants and they serve every section of the duck. So you'll get the heart, the brains, every piece of it, and they come out and they put it on platters. And when you're in China, the table, it sits and it rotates. So they put out the plates and then you rotate and you use your chopsticks and you grab stuff. But I ate duck liver, duck heart, duck brain, and it's like a delicacy in China. So
yeah, I'm never eating duck again, dude. Last time I ate it was at a Chinese restaurant in Belfast, and it was a big mistake. And I was sick for a month. I got Campylobacter, and I was sick for a month. I was a month.
I loved it. The skin on it was so tasty. I loved eating the duck skin.
Yeah, I loved it before that, but I'm never eating it again.
Yeah. Well, I did not get sick, but it was tasty. And it looks like some of the other people saying, Jesse says, Peking duck is so good. Kyrie says, Peking duck is awesome. Yeah, it is. So that's what then their Christmas ends up eating duck. And it's very wholesome. The wife finds it funny, but the way the movie ends is the father and the mother sitting together, watching the snowfall next to the Christmas tree while the boys are upstairs and they've had a successful Christmas day.
Yeah.
And it ends by the boys holding onto their toys that they just got for Christmas. And it ends with Ralphie talking about how this was the greatest Christmas and he'll always remember it. And he was with his Red Ryder BB gun. And that's really the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie, and we had a lot of these in the 80s. Again, with Stand By Me, and we have an adult narrating the nostalgia of their youth and the sort of Christmas, or youthful vision of how perfect things were at the time. And so I think it's a wholesome movie. It's also interesting. I'm always interested by the beginning and the end credits, because the beginning credits here, they began with an archaic font. And they end with a sort of an updated font, like we've grown up. We had the old times and the way things were, and now we have an updated, vision of how we are at the end of the story, which is that the narrator comes back to his own life. And so I think it's great. I think this is important. I mean, and it's weird that it seems to be something that's so natural to people to look back into their past and think of their life and like their sort of idyllic youth. But that's something that is truly going away. We don't have that much anymore.
Right.
Especially with, when we have like an externalized memory in phones and devices, We as adults have the discernment to be able to, we know what happened to us versus what we saw, for instance, on a screen later. But for kids now, I think this is becoming like a real problem. It's already a real problem, that especially when they start to meld and you see youth like on a screen, or you see your memories on a phone. It's like Norm Macdonald said, like in the future, in the past you had one picture of your ancestor, right? And you had to stand there for 8 hours taking a picture, and then in the future it'll be like, you want to see every day of my life ever, every single second, so there's no more memory. There's no more internal memory. Everything is external on a screen. So I think this is sort of going away. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Solid
The mystique of Christmas. I thought about that too as we move into the second film here, A Christmas Vacation. The mystique of Christmas, I mean, it's just not the same as it was when we were kids. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And, Santa Claus, the season, the joyousness, one here in Indiana, we haven't had a white Christmas. This movie was filmed in Northern Indiana. And I can't remember the last time. It had to have been like 9 or 10 years ago since I've seen a white Christmas in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so Christmas season, it just doesn't feel the same like when you're a child. Like the mystique and the magic of it is real. And it's something that every little kid looks forward to. And it's sad that we're living in times in which that memory, that family memory, those family opportunities, of which I have many fond memories as a child.
Yeah.
So many of them, or so many kids aren't growing up with those memories and those family traditions. And that's sad.
The last time I saw a white Christmas was 1998. And I remember it so clearly because it was where there was a major snowstorm and how icy it was and how great of a Christmas it was. And it was the last Christmas of my senior year in high school. And I was talking about it with my friend recently. Shouts out to Logan, one of my old friends, who, his father just passed away, rest in peace. And we were talking about how often we spent time together. He would spend the night at my house every single weekend, and how important it was that, my family was like his family. And he said, "Do you remember that one Christmas?" And I said, "Yeah, you mean 1998 when it snowed?" And it was funny that we haven't talked about it since then, but like that's a kind of a shining memory, for him in his soul. And it is for me too. And I don't know, I guess Bill Gates needs to turn on the heart machines and let it snow every once in a while.
Well, I mean, in Christmas, I remember sledding, like the snow, friends, hot chocolate, like these things are huge memories where, we don't even have snow. I haven't even seen kids sled, in the neighborhood I grew up in ages. And it's like, it just doesn't even feel like the same location, the same neighborhood, the same context I grew up in. It just doesn't even feel the same now in 2023. And kids just aren't the same. You don't even see kids outside. We talked about this previously in regards to, I think we talked about it in the Home Alone review, but just riding bicycles, just going around, like doing stuff, I just don't see kids doing that much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I see them doing it just because of where I am. I mean, even here, with my parents, I've seen some kids outside and stuff. But it is crazy driving around and, or going through neighborhoods and there's nobody at all outside. You wonder where everyone is. Luckily at home, there are a lot of kids, outside playing on bikes and stuff in the neighborhood. And that's always a good sign, especially when I saw that during Karanka, everybody was inside, but luckily there were kids who were outside playing. And that was strange because it was at a point where, everybody was inside. And then I remember a moment like driving home and I saw kids outside playing bikes. And I just thought, God, thank God. Thank the Lord that there's, kids outside playing and that hasn't disappeared yet. So,
yep. And I wanted to update everybody on the poll. The voting on between Christmas Vacation and A Christmas Story has got much, much closer. It's now 58% Christmas Vacation, 42% A Christmas Story. So some of our A Christmas Story supporters have come in. And so it's much closer than it was.
I bet that has something to do with people wishing for something wholesome, for a wholesome movie. I mean, not that Christmas Vacation is too bad, but I'm saying that Christmas Story definitely has the veneer of being much more of a wholesome movie. And those are going away. Those are certainly going away.
Well, now let's get into A Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, let's
Anything you
go.
want to say to start this one? I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to talk about John Hughes or some of his Christmas movies, or what do you want to open with as we start to move through this movie?
Well, this is a good movie. It's I think 1989. It's John Hughes. It has a new director. When we get to the director part, I'll point that out. But this is a great movie. Partly because of what it led to. So first of all, uh, Chris Columbus was supposed to direct the movie, and he could not get along with Chevy Chase, which is a good thing for us because he went off. And the movie that he did instead of this was Home Alone. So he made Home Alone, which was, of course, a John Hughes written movie. This is a National Lampoon movie. So it comes on the heels of, a Christmas of Vacation and European Vacation. Now we get Christmas Vacation. Also, the music is interesting because it's Angelo Badalamenti who did the music for Twin Peaks, David Lynch's Twin
Oh,
Peaks.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, and they chose him because they wanted somebody who had never done Christmas music or never done any kind of like wholesome family movie. They wanted somebody from the outside, so they got him. And of course, he created one of the best scores of all time in the Twin Peaks with the Twin Peaks soundtrack. But this is a good movie. I mean, because again, we have the extended family. This time, it's the extended family all staying in Clark's home. The movie was shot in on a soundstage in California, and parts of it were shot in Colorado for the snow. But of course, the year that they made it, it didn't snow very much, so they had to bring in snow. These are exterior shots, and there's a lot of stuff in here from other movies that I'll point out as we go, and references to other things. But it's a good family movie. I think that one of the negative things about what the movie did is that I think this is probably the start of the bumbling, fumbling, dumbass father.
Yes, I was going to make that same point. I had it written down.
And it's funny in this, and Clark is still, there's a cool,
he's still the man of the house. He's still the one that's getting the money. He's still the one that like takes care of the family, even his extended family.
Yes.
And so it's like he's still a man. He's still a provider, but he is a bubbling fool.
He is, very daddish. He's kind of a dorky dad. I mean, his glasses, the way, and he's always, that's his shtick. That's how he plays it. But what we can see now, all these years later, especially in hindsight, is that I think this really, I mean, Clark Griswold really is the guy that gave us what ended up being the unreliable, bumbling, fumbling dad. And that has been like detrimental in terms of how we see the family unit now. But I don't think that this isn't like, it doesn't make it like a sinister thing in the movie. I think they're just playing that, but it has,
it's led to a rewriting of especially the white family man.
That's right. Yes. And
Art
kind
sort of incompetent fool.
Yeah. Art, and I would count this as a work of art, it's a well done film, and art can echo into the future in terms of what it creates, especially if it has a powerful impact on viewers who then go on to create other things, right? Yeah. Or create derivative works of art. And so that's kind of where we find ourselves now with this.
Def Camp throws in $10 Canadian. Thank you so much, Def Camp. Merry Christmas to you and your family. And he says, save the neck for me, Clark. and that has to be one of my favorite characters in the movie is Uncle Eddie. I also like Uncle Lewis. I find him pretty funny. The old man with the hat's always smoking a cigar. Who's your favorite character in the movie?
That's just a dog yakking on a bone.
yeah, he throws up. Oh, he's good now, Clark.
Yeah. No, I like Eddie. And it's important how Eddie is the one who saves Eddie is probably the best character in this.
Yeah.
Right. He's the one with the golden heart. He's the one who's willing to do anything to help his family. He's the most unreliable character, but he's the most reliable in a pinch. And I think that's important for the movie.
Yeah, that's a great point I want to build on. He's the most unreliable as a person, but in like his qualities he offers and all this stuff, but his heart, his genuineness is why he is in a way the most dependable, and he's the one that saves the family Christmas.
He's extremely positive. He never lets anything get him down. His family's starving, but he still is able to be they're still around. He still provides for him. He still maintains. That's probably the most important thing is that this guy lives in a trailer, right? And he lives in an RV, but he still maintains his family contacts, right? Now,
Yep.
part of that is because he needs money, but he's close with his family. And that is something that is completely gone away now.
Yep.
I mean, if you were to see a guy like this now, he would have no contact with his family at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, his wife would divorce him.
His
right?
wife would have divorced him.
And his wife's still attracted to him, right? That's the point where he tells the kids to sleep with Uncle Clark, that they need to have a little bit of alone time.
Yeah.
And so there's still the nuclear family. He's still the sort of leader of his particular family, even though he hadn't got his kids Christmas presents the year before. And I love the scene, we'll get to it, where they're shopping and he just keeps stacking the grocery cart full of dog food.
Yep.
And he's like, Eddie, I want to do something for the kids.
Mhm.
Clark, I'm not much for charity.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we really want, it's not charity, it's family.
Yeah.
Well, when you put it like that, and then he has a list in alphabetical order.
he's crude, he's rude and crude and uncouth, but he's a man. I mean, even the way that he grabs the dog food and stacks it into the cart.
Yeah.
The guy's a man. He's like sort of unapologetic about his manliness in this. And when the movie came out, nobody would have gotten that. But now I think you watch it and it's almost admirable.
Yeah, his 70s leisure suit. I love it.
So, and of course, there's stuff about the tie-ins with like Clark working for an advertising firm, and he's waiting on the bonus check, and he doesn't get it, and he's got to wait for the corporate guy to be his daddy, and the family all suffers because of this, and that's something that's just become even more. It's become accelerated as time has gone on. So,
and Clark, he's a doer, right? So he's not like the Homer Simpson bumbling character where he just sits and watches TV.
Yeah,
Clark's doing stuff, putting up lights, making sure that he's a very active guy, which I just wanted to point that out. So anyway, let's start moving through the film here.
One more thing is
go ahead.
Is that Beverly D'Angelo, the wife, you notice doesn't nag him.
Yes.
In the movie. So for instance, when he's outside and he's putting up lights on the house and she comes out and she says, "Don't you want to spend time with the family, Clark?" And he says, "Well, I got to get this done." But that's all. She leaves it at that. Right? Because she knows that he has good intentions. He wants to have this big epiphany for the family, and also contrasted with the neighbors. So we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Neighbors.
So this opens up, they're singing Joy to the World, and then come let us adore him. And then they say the Lord's Prayer. So there's multiple references here to Jesus right from the get-go of the movie. I thought was interesting. Not that's a huge deal or anything, but I just wanted to throw that in there. And a super chat came in over on the Dono chat by George W. Barfer and says the word Jesus is in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and a second time in the scene where Clark gets trapped in the attic. I highly recommended a song called Spirit of Christmas by Ray Charles. Yeah, I do know that song, and I would play it, but that would get the stream taken down for copyright. So thank you so much, George Barfer, for the $4.99 super chat over on the Dono chat. God bless you. Merry Christmas to you and yours. And so I had a question during this one is, where exactly are they going in Chicago with all these mountains to get this Christmas tree? But the family, again, we see the sort of attempts by a wholesome family tradition. Ellen, the wife, she's going along with Clark and singing the songs and all this different stuff. The kids don't really care to participate. Then we see the sort of country hill jacks with their pickup truck running right on the back of the family station wagon.
Yeah.
And typical in male fashion, the guy goes to pass you and you actually accelerate to make it more difficult and flips him off.
That's the same. For movie nerds, that's the same truck that the family has in the movie Overboard with Kurt Russell, which is a great 80s film. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. Same exact truck.
And then we get the very famous scene where he goes to pull around and then actually pulls under the log truck there. they had to adjusted this somehow, right? Because there's I've never seen one high enough for a car to actually fit underneath it, but maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe it's just the way that the logs are stacked. But another classic scene here where again Clark gets him in a pickle, and then Clark gets him out of the pickle in an unusual, uncanny fashion where he pulls out, and then he's getting ready to hit um, the snowplow truck, and then he hits the snow bank and pulls right into the parking lot to get their Christmas tree.
So they had their station wagon in the original Vacation, and remember they were in the desert instead of in the
Yes.
snow desert, and they sort of did the same thing here. But like it ends up he ends up exactly in the place where he was supposed to be. Also, he's trying to outman the other guys, like riding his tail on the
Right.
road. So he's trying to alpha them, but it's silly how it does that. Also, the son is Johnny Galecki, who plays one of the gay scientists on what's the show? The show about the scientists that's on now. I forget what it's called.
Doctor Who? I don't know.
No. The one about the three scientists. A Big Bang Theory. He's in Big Bang Theory.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah, that's him. And he was also Darlene's boyfriend in Roseanne.
Oh, dang. I connected the Big Bang and Roseanne as the same guy. I did not realize it was the boy here. And I didn't realize that he was 14 years old when he actually did this movie. He was only a year younger than the girl who played his older sister. But
well, you know who the older sister is? It's Juliette Lewis. And Juliette Lewis is she got an Oscar nomination the next year in 1990 in Cape Fear. I did an analysis on Southern Gothic recently. We talked about Cape Fear, and Juliette Lewis is also, she's the one in Old School. Remember at the beginning of Old School when Luke Wilson walks in, she goes, "I'm really sorry." That's that's her. And she plays, her father is Jeffrey Lewis, who is in all the Clint Eastwood movies. He's Clint Eastwood's best friend in real life.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So here they go to get their amazing Christmas tree, of which his daughter is freezing from the waist down. Both the kids are ready to get out of here. The wife willingly follows her husband. They get to the tree. They find the perfect tree, and the son goes, "Dad, did you bring the saw?"
Yeah.
And of course, he didn't. So, assuming they had to push this tree over to get it to come out by its roots and then drag it back to the car.
Well, he says, we're like the pioneers, right? They had to cut down the trees with their bare hands. And of course, that's what they end up having to do. And they're trudging across the snow like Lewis and Clark or something. A lot of Lewis and Clark, a lot of Clark's, manhood and fatherhood is spent like talking about the pioneers and about America and about how, this is how we survive. And, so. But the tree always looks smaller than it does when you get it into the house, right? It's this gigantic tree.
Right.
And I don't know if you had to do this with your family, but we watched this last night. We were talking about this, how my sister was like, did we ever do this? And I was like, oh yeah, we did. I remember doing this. We drove forever and we walked forever in the snow out to cut a tree down. And I remember it was just like this, and cut the tree down, and it was far too big once we got it into the house. So
we've never had a real tree. I've never had a Christmas with a real tree, always the fake ones.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they get the tree, they put it on the station wagon. Of course, now you see the big roots behind it because he didn't actually bring the saw when they went to go get it. And now we come back and we see the neighbors. And my immediate thought was dink culture. I don't know if you've seen this being celebrated on social media. Dinks are dual income, no kid couples.
Yeah.
And this is being touted as like a sort of honorary badge that you're able to live the life that you want without having kids dragging you down and forcing you to have all these responsibilities you don't want.
Yes.
And I thought this couple, even though maybe it wasn't intended, is certainly a great archetype for that.
Yeah. So this is the 80s version of that. That's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's Elaine from Seinfeld. And this is a postmodern, atheistic, couple who has nothing to do with Christmas. Their house has nothing Christmas. They're completely tech oriented. They're total yuppies.
Yep.
They're both in whatever industry they're in the city. He's got his slick back hair. Todd and Margot. And they're seen as like, this like prototypical, what's going to become typical of what you were just saying, sort of postmodernist, we don't care about anything couple, but all they get is the short end of the stick because, of course, Clark living next door dominates them. And he's about to do Jason and Texas Chainsaw Massacre in one here, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, we can't play any of the scenes, or I would play some of the best scenes from this movie. This one's definitely going to get us flagged. And I love the guy goes, Clark, that tree looks a little big. Where are you going to put it?
Why don't you bend over and I'll show you?
Yeah. He goes, how dare you say that to me? I wasn't talking to you. Which is hilarious. A great comeback. And we see, again, the dynamics of this relationship is the female dominates. So whatever this man is, yeah, he's a good looking man, but he's totally dominated by the female. So we see a sort of dink simp motif there, I would argue. And so here he brings the tree into the house, way too big. Again, smashing up against the ceiling, and he gets sap all over his hands.
Yeah.
Now we see him in bed with his wife.
So that's the director on the front of his People magazine right there.
Oh, is it really? Oh, okay. I was going to ask you if there's something there because he eventually puts it on the front of him. And, oh, there he is right there. That's
the director.
So yeah, his hands covered in sap from, again, the day, his extravaganza getting his tree. And we see his sort of beautiful wife, very accommodating. Go ahead.
Yeah. She's so beautiful. Beverly D'Angelo is so beautiful in this, man. She's classy. She's beautiful. She's a good looking woman. She was Al Pacino's girlfriend for like a number of years. They have 2 kids together.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, moving through this scene.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
There's the dinosaur pajamas from Home Alone that they
Yes.
mentioned. In Home Alone. Remember?
Can you? I am like busting out the seams. I got to use the restroom real quick.
Yeah, I got you.
Let me move it to the next scene, and then you can take over. Unless there's anything else you want to say here.
No. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, here we go. This is the office scene. You want to take it from here? Just give me a quick.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So DPH has drank like 4 Ovaltines and 8 Red Bulls during the stream, so he's busted at the seams here. But what we mentioned in the Home Alone stream was there's a part where Macaulay Culkin says, "Yeah, my cousin had some dinosaur pajamas and he got beat up for it or whatever." So there's Clark with his dinosaur pajamas in the last scene, and now here we go to the corporate scene, right, with the chrysanthemums in the background, and he's what is he drinking from his Tasmanian Devil Cup because they're an advertising company. Also, somebody brought up, I think JC, about Chevy Chase coming from a well-to-do family. Yeah, Chevy Chase went to Choate, prestigious prep school in the Northeast. And if you want to learn all about that, you can go back and watch my stream on Caddyshack and National Lampoon, which is where I covered Doug Kenny, the guy who created National Lampoon, who was friends with Chevy Chase. There's actually a pretty good movie about it, and they started all this stuff. They started National Lampoon, but Doug Kenny and Chevy Chase were these Northeastern Choate, Northeast establishment Harvard guys who were trying to be subversive. They were doing boomer subversion of American comedy and media. And Doug Kenny was a very, talented guy, but Chevy Chase, they Saturday Night Live was started as a copy of what Doug Kenny had started. And then eventually they did a kind of a takeover of that. And then one of the producers of this movie, I think, did a hostile takeover of National Lampoon the year after this and took over that as a corporation. So, but regardless of all that stuff, yes, I mean, Chevy Chase is certainly an establishment character in his real life. And now here we get the advertising firm or whatever he works for with his Tasmanian Devil cup talking to the other guy about, I got to get this bonus, buddy, because I think he's already financed the swimming pool.
Right. Yeah, this is the scene where we see the sort of childishness of Clark with that Tasmanian Devil coffee cup, and he's talking to one of the other associates there at the business, and he starts talking about a little bit about the bonus, expecting a big Christmas bonus this year, and he's like, "Well, you got any plans for it?" And he's like, Well, yeah, I do. And he pulls out this little pamphlet about the swimming pool, and he goes, "Man, Clark, you are the last true family man."
He's got like a nuclear bunker. Is that a bunker right there?
Yeah. I mean, it is decked out. That's for sure.
That looks like a Mad Magazine article right there. I mean, it looks like Mad Magazine sort of animation. So that's where they're taking their cue from there. And kind of contrast, yeah. And here comes the boss is Brian Doyle Murray, who is Bill Murray's brother, and he's in all the.
That's Bill Murray's brother.
Yeah, he's his older brother, and he's.
I can kind of see the relation now that you say it.
Yeah, especially when he talks, he has the same voice. He plays the guy who runs the Caddy Shack in Caddyshack.
Oh wow, did not even catch that.
Yeah, and also the movie's set in Chicago. The Murrays are from Chicago, and Chevy Chase and the Murrays have a big conflict. They were sort of enemies because Chevy Chase took over Bill Murray took over Weekend Update from Chevy Chase, and Chevy Chase's tagline at the start of Saturday Night Live was, "I'm Chevy Chase and you're not." So then when Bill Murray, Chevy Chase was out, and then Bill Murray took it over, and then apparently they had a big conflict, and then that led to Caddyshack in 1980. But yeah, it's Brian Doyle Murray, and his boardroom full of minions here,
of which he always gets people's names wrong, and so he calls Clark Bill, or he doesn't even know his name. He says the wrong name to Bill, and Clark says Bill.
Yeah,
and he confuses him, but that's sort of the motif, is that the boss never gets his name right until the Christmas scene at the end on New Year's when Uncle Eddie brings him to the house. And so you can see he's like, Clark, I'm going to need a report on whatever it is. He's created some type of chemical that he's going to at one point put on his sled, which I think that's my least favorite scene, is the sled scene. But he wants a full report on basically this product that he's created, and put it in layman terms, not all that highfalutin jargon. And
Kit in the chat says, a la American Psycho. Well, actually, yeah, I mean, you're right, because that's one of the reasons that the writers, I mean, John Hughes wrote the movie, but that's one of the reasons why the writers do this, especially in these National Lampoon movies. I mean, Chevy Chase does that in a lot of his movies. And so the misnaming is supposed to be a power dynamic, right? And it resembles American Psycho because, especially in corporate culture, nobody recognizes anybody else for who they actually are. They're always getting names wrong, and it's always their role in the company that's more important. So it shows that identity,
dehumanization, depersonalization.
Exactly. It completely, any kind of humanity gets lost, and they're in there as corporate entities.
Yeah, great point. So this is a little funny scene where he starts telling everybody Merry Christmas as they walk in. Merry Christmas, kiss my ass, Merry Christmas, kiss his ass, Happy Hanukkah.
But they got the chrysanthemums in the background, so that's Christmassy.
Yep. And so here we get a little scene of downtown Chicago in 1989. And we can still see it's much more wholesome and festive than I dare you to go downtown Chicago in 2023 and look for a scene like this. Make sure you're strapped.
Pop. Yeah.
And then this is a funny little scene where he's
this is my favorite scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's looking for apparently lingerie for his wife, and the sales attendant shows up, of which Clark is a little bit flabbergasted by her beauty. And the whole
Damn,
joke
she's
here,
smoking, dude. She is so hot.
she
She
is pretty
is
hot.
so fine. Oh my god.
She's a pretty girl.
Yeah.
And so he keeps messing up and keeps referring all the different situations again, essentially back to her breasts.
Yeah.
And so you see he begins to sort of fantasize about this woman later in regard to the pool scene, but this is hilarious. He starts wiping his brow. He's sweating. He feels uncomfortable. Uses a woman's panties to wipe his sweat off. Puts it in his non-existent breast pocket. And so this ends up with you see that he is clearly in conversation with her, and then Rusty comes up and she's showing him her no line panties, which goes up high on the hip.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. Hooter than usual. He's hotter than usual.
Yeah. Yeah, hooter than usual.
Yeah. Yeah. You like that? You like that, Rusty? All the way up.
Yeah. Do you see that, Rusty? Rusty. And so you know, certainly this is playing on men's sort of eye for the sexual, eye for beautiful women, and at the same time he has a very beautiful wife, and he tells her that, you know, God rest her soul. Oh, I'm sorry that she's I mean she's not dead. We're just not together. We're divorced. So pretty funny scene here.
She passed away. I mean,
Yeah,
she's not
do you see
dead.
that line,
Out of my
Rusty?
life. She's out of my life.
Yeah, a bit nipply in here, isn't it?
Yes.
Veritas has all the lines. He said that he believes that girl did porn or something.
No, I don't think she did. She was just a model. Her last name's I know her last name's Scorsese. She's not related to Martin Scorsese. I know she was born in 1954 because I have a autistic mind for these things. But I don't think she did porn. Yeah. She was supposed to get. They were supposed to get Christy Brinkley, but Christy Brinkley didn't want to be in 2 consecutive movies that playing the same character. It wouldn't make sense. So
I see. So we get a little view again. Something we've seen in all the Home Alone movies as well. A throwback to It's a Wonderful Life, of which you and I both covered last Christmas season.
That's right.
So make sure to go back and check that. A historic Christmas classic, probably more classic than any of the movies we're watching today. But obviously many people our age probably haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life. But we see Rusty here watching it. People are knocking on the door, and we see Clark pretending to be Santa. And what do we hear? We hear all this commotion out on the front door, and it is the family, the in-laws. So we have right here these 2 people. This woman who played in Everybody Loves Raymond.
That's right.
Those are the parents of the wife, and then the parents of Clark are the 2 on the ends here. And so they are here arriving early too. This is like December 14th or something. Yes, I forget, because they open the calendar and you kind of can see what day it is. So very early to come for Christmas vacation, but that's what they've signed up for, to have the ultimate family vacation. And I love it when the old people come in. All they talk about are their health ailments, which is so true.
Do I have something right here?
Yeah.
I've got a discoloration.
Like Clark.
Yes. Yeah. The doorbell also gets more ominous as it rings when they open the door for the family. If you notice that, it goes down in tone, so it ends up with an ominous bell. Like,
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, and the family comes in.
Oh, great pull! I did not pick up on that at all. So I thought this was so interesting because, again, you get the kids. Oh, that means I got to sleep with my brother. All the beds and bedrooms are gone. You got to make these sacrifices for the grandparents, of which the grandparents say awkward, weird things, make the kids feel a little bit uncomfortable. And Clark's, now it's time to decorate the house. So he goes out with lights, and he's putting his son to work, right? So this is, I thought, again, just like A Christmas Story, we see the relationship between father and son. Is the son aiding the father in various chores and tasks? And so he's putting the son to work to help for this perfect Christmas season, put up all the decorations.
And the daughter is aiding the mother. She's helping cook in the kitchen.
Right.
And also, I can't believe I didn't think of this, but Juliette Lewis most famously plays Mallory in Natural Born Killers, and my last stream was on that. It was on
Never seen
American Maniacs Natural Born Killers analysis, where Juliette Lewis and Woody Harrelson played Mickey and Mallory. So please go back and check that out, people, if you haven't seen that.
So you can see the son kind of reluctant. I totally relate to this when I was like getting into middle school and high school. Your parents had tasks for you to do. You got to go do this. You got to, help your dad chop up that tree that fell over from the storm, the other night. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have all these other things I want to do. I want to go see my friends. I want to go hang out.
Bro, I'm trying to go out and drink some Beast Light and Natty Light with the homeboys, man. I don't have time to roll up a rug or whatever.
So very, very relatable scene here for the little kid. And then of course we see the Dink couple come out. Oh, I hate that freezes every once in a while. I gotta hit play for it to come back. And we begin to see the sort of goofball Clark. First, the ladder falls down, and he's lucky he doesn't get hurt. Goes back all the way to the to the sort of contracted level of the ladder. And then here he's putting up the lights, and you can already tell something's going to go wrong. And he staples his flannel to the gutter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he staples every light into the house, including the roof.
I know. I was thinking, what a bear that would be to take down. Gosh.
And he doesn't check them before he puts them up either.
Yep. So here the ladder, he finally rips the sleeve off. It's hanging from the gutter, almost falls off the ladder, of which he eventually does. Well, he falls off the roof later. And then we see Ellen. Again, she's dealing with the stress of the family being there, cooking in the kitchen, lights up a cigarette to get a little nicotine relief.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we go, Ellen, are you smoking again?
Right away.
No.
Yeah.
And so now it's nighttime. He's literally covered the entire house with light bulbs. Rusty is tired as crap of helping his dad put up all these decorations. And we see his legs already wrapped around with light bulbs. He's getting ready to fall off the roof. Catches himself on the gutter. The gutter breaks and shoots essentially an icicle all the way across through the window of the neighbors and melts their electric keyboard.
Yeah.
Melts onto the electric keyboard. Of course, the wife comes out. Clark, dinner's ready.
Yeah, she's so pretty. It destroys their CD player and their CD stereo collection, which was pretty big time in 1989. That's what they have instead of kids, of course.
Right. And he goes, "Oh, thanks, honey. I'm starving." He's laying in the bush. Of course, they come home like, "Well, something had to break the window, Margot."
Oh, by the way, you want to know something totally, deep into movies?
What is it?
This house that Margot and Todd live in is the same house that the Murtaughs live in Lethal Weapon. It's on the Warner Brothers backlot. Isn't that crazy?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
You got all the movie movie info.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hi-fi.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Of course, they eventually look out and they realize that Clark is up to no good putting up Christmas decorations. They sort of begin to try to piece something together. Well, why is there water on the floor? I don't know, Margot.
He's wearing a bolo. Yeah. Shoulder pads.
And so this is the scene, the anticlimactic scene where they get the drum roll. Clark is ready to light up the house to impress the family, of which it doesn't light up. And so here's another instance of the sort of bubbling fool.
Yeah.
When really it comes back to, she asks, Clark, did you make sure everything's plugged in? Ellen, of course I did. Which
this is also Christmas lights that, back then, if one bulb was out, then the Christmas strand wouldn't light up. And they kind of they fixed that over the years, where it could still light even if one bulb's broken. But Also, yeah, Kristen said something about the hi-fi. I think it just shows you that what people like that find important, that this stereo system, which is quickly out of fashion and and too expensive, instead of them having a child,
Right.
if they can, if they can have a child.
Right. And that's what one of the notes that I wrote down was Christmas sentimentality and childhood memories. And
Yeah,
so the Dink couple next door, yeah, they have exposable income. They have all the goods and stuff that they want, and yet their life together is so dreary,
yeah,
so empty. And
right.
meanwhile, Clark, his life, everything is going wrong that can possibly go wrong, but because he has family,
Yeah,
it actually is still meaningful.
right.
So here, the lights don't work. Everybody, again, especially his father-in-law, kind of mocks him and makes fun of him, which is common throughout the movie. Where his parents come
His
and
dad says, "I'm sure it's just a bulb that's out, Frank. If you need me, I'll be upstairs asleep."
and even the daughter says, "Well, Daddy, I'm sure it's really beautiful." And so you see that the family loves their father.
Yes.
And he's like, Russ, you checked every bulb, right? Yeah, Dad. Well, maybe we need to go back through it. Oh man, look at the time. And so Rusty's ready to get out of there. And we see Ellen again support her husband, kiss his little butt chin, and the siblings have to sleep together, which would be a nightmare. And of course, we see Grandpa smiling endlessly because he's staring at Rusty's photos of scantily clad women up on the ceiling. So Grandpa's having a pretty good time.
Which Clark is going to collapse through right from the attic.
Right. So we see the moon. We see Clark still working on the lights. He's got all these Christmas gifts, still excited in his dinosaur PJs.
Yeah.
And he goes up into the attic. Another classic scene. And again, this is another scene. Yes, there's a reference to Jesus, but he's hiding the packages. He sees one from Mother's Day from 1983, so 6 years previous. But he begins crying, thinking about the childhood memories in regards to Christmas and Christmas season. So again, saying both movies, A Christmas Story and Christmas Vacation, the underlying message is still the importance of family during the holidays and how those memories are something to seriously be cherished. And so eventually they're going to leave without him to go Christmas shopping at the mall, and he's going to be locked in the attic. But he begins to put on old clothes. He finds old film and starts watching Christmas videos from when he was a child, when he was a little boy, and it brings him to tears.
Yeah.
Of course, right here, he smashes through the ceiling here. He's standing on top of the bunk bed, which you think maybe he could have fit through there somehow.
Right.
But
why is he walking on the insulation? I mean,
I know. Everybody knows you got to walk on the beams when you walk in an attic.
Yeah, the slapstick is funny and it sells the movie, especially at the time. But this is, for me, this is kind of the weak points of the actual story. I mean, it wouldn't be the story without those things,
right?
But there's certainly the weak points of the movie. The strong point is that, he tries to get warm with the only things he has, which is like the mink stole, and the woman's clothes, right? And that he watches the film, and the film is like Christmas 58 or 59. That's the name of the original story that John Hughes pulled this from, that he wrote, I guess he had written earlier. And another thing is that in these movies is that, like, Chevy Chase is great for his improvisation, but that John Hughes movies are famous because he doesn't allow for improvisation. So a lot of the things that seem improvised are actually written verbatim by John Hughes. And I think that's what makes it a strong movie. We get that in Home Alone, we get it in Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller and all these movies where it seems that the people are so natural and that they're improvising because they're actors, but it's actually just John Hughes sort of foresees that, and that's, for the strength of the writing. But then the bumbling stuff is certainly where Chevy Chase comes into frame. But I think that it's like Chevy Chase apparently is so hard to work with, that a lot of these characters, comedies a lot of times aren't made, not because Well, one reason is because it's hard to make a comedy that's going to last and that's not like just of the time, so it goes dead, very quickly and the things get dated. But it's also because a lot of times comedic actors are incredibly hard to work with. And so it's hard to have funny scenes where, if you say something funny and then you have to repeat it again and again, it becomes less funny. And that's hard to translate in a film.
Well, that was also something that we pointed out with Home Alone 1 and 2,
Uh,
that when I remember the behind the scenes video I sent you, that John Hughes was like very involved in them saying the exact words that he had written.
yes.
And so as your point again regarding this movie, we see the same thing. So which really highlights how good of a writer John Hughes is.
Yeah.
Because you really, even in Home Alone 1, all the lines of Macaulay Culkin, he was a really good child actor, but it's believable. It doesn't seem like it's just a script. It's something that you think maybe a kid would say, who is, smart enough to operate in that context in which Macaulay Culkin is, Kevin. But like you're pointing out, same thing's true here. Is really trying to stick to the script, which really makes it.
It's also believable because in John Hughes movies, the wider cast is what really makes the movie, the supporting cast, because you believe that they're human beings who live a life and they're on a trajectory. And so when they're in frame for the movie, this is a small part of their life, but they're going to go on and live lives. So we believe that they're real people. It's not hokey. They're not playing for laughs. And I think that's one of the things that Chevy Chase is in kind of a precarious part, and where he really does well with this movie is that a comedy is difficult because a lot of times the actor playing the comic role wants to play for easy laughs. Like, for instance, if you're on a set and you make the set laugh, then it seems funny, but it doesn't translate because you have to play for the truth of whatever the situation is. That makes it a deeper kind of funny and a funny that will last for years. And so I think with Chevy Chase, of course, he's a physical actor and he's used to being live on a TV stage, like for Saturday Night Live and stuff. And a lot of his movies are flops, but this one manages to do well because, for instance, this scene, there's a lot of depth and emotion in this scene, and it's still funny him sitting there in woman's clothes watching it. But what he's watching is not funny. It's deep. He sees this family 30 years ago having a family vacation, and now they're all gone or they're older, and now he's that age. So we get a sense of nostalgia and the importance of family watching it.
And this was a huge success. So unlike the Christmas Story, A Christmas Story, that maybe wasn't as a success when it first came out or when it was first released, this movie was a star right from the beginning. I mean, it was like number 2 for the first 2 weeks at the box office, then number 1 in the third week, and then has only gotten more and more and more popular over the years. So
yeah, and there were only 2 Christmas movies when this came out. Also, it was this and that movie Prancer with Sam Elliott.
Never seen
in 1989. 2 Christmas movies. That's it.
Yeah, I'd never seen it. And that's where John Hughes, he made a point. You go look at the films that he's produced. There's a lot of Christmas movies in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was something you brought up during the Home Alone 1 and 2. So here again, I think the takeaway from this scene is really it's highlighting the importance of family. He's wearing old clothes from his mother, conceivably, finds these old films from previous Christmases, and then starts watching them and sort of reliving, the mystical, magical memories we all have as children regarding Christmas and that time with family.
Again, you have to search for these memories. He has to find them in an old box in the attic on a reel-to-reel. He can't look them up on a TikTok where they're always available, and they just get buried. The memories are buried, and they're buried in the attic, but when he finds them, they're meaningful instead of always present on a cell phone.
Yes, great point. Very good point there. And so let's move through into the next scene here, of which now we see the neighbors, and the wife comes home and she goes to open up she has gifts and she goes to open up the attic, and of course he's sitting on the door like a doofus.
Yeah.
And so he falls through. Funny. And there we see the couple, and this is a perfect. I'm so glad it stopped right here, because we see the simpy man.
Yep.
They just worked out. He wants to give her a kiss, and
only after you showered, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, only after you shower. What? And his name is Todd.
Yeah.
Todd. Uh, yeah. So Todd is trying to kiss Margot here, but Margot again doesn't give him any affection. Is not very close. He's always sort of trying to accommodate to her and appeal to her. And eventually, we'll see the scene where she asks him to go stand up to Clark, of which he doesn't want to do, and then she goes and does. Of course, she gets destroyed by the dog and the squirrel, but um again, it's indicative of the inversal of the relationship roles, right? So in both A Christmas Story and even the Griswold family, it's a traditional nuclear family with traditional gender and sexual roles of men and women.
And they're even dressed alike in these sort of, spacesuit tracksuits. Like, and look, there's nothing wrong with that if it's ironic or if it's like, you see those couples and they're both wearing jorts or whatever, and they're dressed alike on vacation, and that can be funny and that can be okay. But this is like clearly the husband wants to dress like the wife,
Right.
right? And she's, they want to be the same person, and she's drinking her. By the way, even the fact she's drinking Evian or drinking water from a bottle in 1989 is important and speaks to the kind of people they are, because no one did that back then. That wasn't a thing. Evian was seen as a sort of a class thing. It's certainly seen as an actor thing. What's my motivation? Where's my Evian? Yeah, he's just totally simping.
Yeah, he's a total simp. And yeah, it's indicative of the sort of materialistic, well-to-do yuppie lifestyle that they have. And you can imagine many of these types of couples today, they would be dressed alike so they could take their Instagram photos together. And yet, if you actually saw what the relationship was like behind all the Instagram and the social media curation, it's probably very similar to this. The woman dictates the relationship. The man's always trying to simp for affection. And really, it's just the inversal of the roles, which always leads to a sort of collapse.
They're the kind of people whose wedding vows, instead of till death do us part or something, they say like, till as long as our relationship lasts, we'll be together. Right? It's like,
Yeah. Being Emotions as a prophetic couple, really, it really is. That's why I think the Dink phenomenon that's taken off in the last month or two, it really fits with this couple here. So moving on, we see again that whole scene just to show us the sort of relationship dynamic those two have. And then Clark's still out here struggling to get the lights in. This was the scene that you were mentioning, where she's like, Clark, you gonna come in and spend time with the family? And he's basically highlighting that the importance is to get these lights to work, to provide this opportunity for the family. And he gets so frustrated. She doesn't realize what's going on. And of course, the mother of Clark here goes into the garage and turns on the switch, which is the thing that everybody's actually been waiting on, is to give energy to all these electric extension cords that are plugged in. And so the lights turn on. I love this. It's blinding the neighbors. They're finally going to get intimate, right? And they got their silk PJs on. He has house shoes on the bed. They're sipping champagne, getting ready to finally kiss each other, and they're blinded by the light of the Griswold Christmas.
Yeah, shine a light on their world and dissolve their they got to be together in the dark all the time.
Yeah,
and this is how cyber polygon happens, by the way. Is Clark turning on his electric lights, the nuclear reactor goes down.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so then the lights go off, the mother or the grandmother, Clark's mom, turns the switch off, and then the wife, contemplating, what's really going on here? What's happened? And then so she goes back into the kitchen. She turns it on, and this is a really indicative scene too. While this is going, because the neighbors, while he trips right here, and hurts himself.
He's carrying her
And
tray
she
of
is
food.
concerned with what was spilt on the carpet and not caring about actually the man she's with may have hurt himself falling down the stairs. So again, their priorities are so out of whack compared to the priorities of Clark, right? Clark is getting everything wrong, but his priorities are in the correct order.
He's carrying the tray of, muffins or whatever for his wife
Yeah.
on the stairs.
And so they come out, and Clark's pissed because all the lights they turned on and then they went out. He didn't know what's going on. And then the wife, thinking about it, contemplating, he's punching Santa tearing up the reindeer.
He broke his finger in that scene.
Did he really?
Yeah, Chevy Chase. Yeah, that's the take that they used.
And so then the lights come on, and now Clark Griswold is a hero. Like, here she is. She's complaining about what was spilt on the carpet. Meanwhile, he's down here. He may have had a concussion or something. But again, you see the priorities.
Mm-hmm.
The priorities are totally inverted. It's about things and not people, where this is all about people and not things. And that's why even their house, all the window, I think by the end of the movie, is like every window is broken in the house.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is the people. And so it's massive celebration.
Yeah. The moment that he connects the lights is great, because the lights, the light turns on and we hear Christmas music and he sings Joy to the World.
Yeah. Well, and this is where we get introduced to the best character, Uncle Eddie.
Uh-huh.
And so he's excited, like, yeah, that sure looks good, Clark. And so now we see Eddie and Catherine there. Eddie, sort of surprised by Uncle Eddie's appearance. Of course, we get the kids coming out of the RV here. Yeah. with Snot, the Rottweiler, who's got some type of nasal problem where he snots everywhere. And so, yeah, so this is really just the celebratory scene. Again, what I took from it, again, Clark Griswold, in all that effort, it still brings the family together. And in that scene, more of the family comes. Right. Uncle Eddie and his family now emerge as part of the clan, as part of the group celebrating this perfect Christmas. So it's still, again, Clark is bringing people together as opposed to the dink neighbors. So everybody starts to go inside, and I love when Uncle Eddie tells the kids to stay with Uncle Clark so him and his wife can have a little privacy time.
There's the sweet dog. Yeah, they show up in a toxic van. Nowadays, they'd say his is the toxic family, but we're going to see actually his family is, I suppose in a way he's literally toxic. They put toxic fumes down the sewer, yeah. But they end up being wholesome.
Yeah, I'd hold off on that, Art. He's got a bit of a lip fungus that ain't identified yet. And then I love this, right? He cuts the neck out of a turtleneck to put underneath his V-neck sweater, of which his nipples are exposed. It's hilarious. He's like, Eddie, Snot, he's drinking all the water of the tree. Oh, he'll be fine. Well, he's going to dry out the tree. He's like, Snot, get out of here. Go.
Yeah, that's Randy Quaid. Dennis Quaid is in Inner Space. And actually, I did an analysis of Dennis Quaid's Enemy Mine, which is one of his great films. But that's Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid, remember, was the guy who left Hollywood years ago because he did the press conference talking about the star whackers, right? He said that in Hollywood, there were a bunch of assassins who were killing off famous people, and they were known as the star whackers, and everybody said he was crazy. And he had kind of a crazed look in his eye, but maybe he was just going sane and sort of disappeared.
And Randy Quaid has also received more recent criticism because he's a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And he's very vocal about his support for, the whole MAGA movement and American conservatism and patriotism and all that stuff. So that's another reason why he's highlighted that he doesn't have any opportunities in Hollywood and doesn't foresee that ever happening again.
I think Dennis Quaid is a libertarian. But Randy Quaid certainly was much more vocal about stuff. Randy Quaid is a great actor. He's great. Remember, he was in Days of Thunder, but he's great. He's great. Probably his best movie is in Midnight Express, which I was just talking about the other night, written by Oliver Stone, where he plays a guy who's locked up in a Turkish prison. He's great. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, agreed. I think, and he's hilarious. I think that he's hilarious in this movie. So he's drinking the spiked eggnog, and of course he breaks everything, comes over here and knocks the entire fan down. What is that, it's a German type of German Dutch fan.
But look how he swaggers around the room, Yeah. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. His nipples protruding. I love that, right? You can see his nipples under the white V-neck with the black turtleneck.
He's got the same shoes on that Clark gave him in the first one, by the way, those white leather shoes.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on
Yeah.
that. Great point. So they're doing a little banter, stuff like that. And I love the line right here, like right where this scene ends. Clark tells him, that's a nice RV you got out there. Just trying to give small talk. And he's like, well, don't go and fall in love with it. I'll be taking it with me in a month or so.
In a month.
So here we are, December 18th.
Oh my gosh. It's still a week till Christmas.
Week till Christmas. Yeah. The entire family, including Uncle Eddie's at his house. And this is where he goes and gives a gift to the boss, of which clearly the joke here is looks like everybody bought the exact same gift.
Yeah.
And I think he tells him he's like, just sit it down there with the rest of them, greaseball, instead of Griswold.
And then he's at the end of the forever boardroom table, right?
Yeah.
With a million phones in front of him. This guy's the boss of the world. Look at the table.
Yeah, ginormous. And he's like, well, I got an important meeting here, Griswold. And then he picks up the phone. Get me somebody.
Yeah,
Give me somebody while I'm waiting. And so here's the sled scene. I think we can move quickly through this one. There's not much here other than he polishes it up and the sled goes exceedingly fast and he ends up in a Walmart parking lot.
Yes, JFB 48. I just mentioned that. Come on, y'all, listen to my comments here. Listen to my intense autistic comments about movies. I just made that reference. But thank you for doing that.
That's why we got BLA, guys. We get a professional for this type of stuff.
Yeah.
So here he is daydreaming about his pool again while he's sitting in his office. Bill comes in telling him Merry Christmas, that they're off for the holidays. And he asks him, did your bonus come in? He's like, I don't know. Something came in at the house. I assume that's it. And Clark's beginning to get a little concerned that the Christmas bonus isn't coming in because he's already laid down a deposit of $7,500, which again in 1989, that's a pretty penny.
Yeah.
Put down $7,500 for the installation of your pool, which obviously there's going to be more costs there, but it's like, dang.
Yeah.
So clearly very much committed to the family here. And so he's getting a little concerned, goes home, doesn't have the Christmas bonus yet. And now he gets the dream vision of the family pool. Of course, Uncle Eddie, you wouldn't expect anything different. Right there. He's got, oh my gosh. He's got his flippers on, a Speedo over boxers or underwear with a wife beater and a beer, with goggles on his head. I mean, hilarious. The uncle everybody wishes they had. And of course, his wife out here serving people, the kids in the pool. And this quickly turns into the family, into the woman at the counter, at the lingerie counter.
Yeah. Yes.
And so she's blowing him kisses, and then she starts taking her clothes off.
Yeah. And he gets interrupted.
Yeah. So right when she's getting ready to come up out of the water with no top on, the daughter of Uncle Eddie comes in and goes, Santa? Yeah. Oh, Uncle Clark, are you Santa? And this I wrote down, and I'm curious your opinion on this, and I'll open it up for the chat too. What are your thoughts about convincing children that Santa is real? Because here he promises and swears to her that Santa's real and that he's going to be stopping by the Griswold house this Christmas. And this is where he finds out that Uncle Eddie and Catherine have not given Christmas presents, at least last year, assumingly maybe multiple Christmases. And so they're beginning to not believe in Santa Claus because he never brings them any gifts. And he makes the claim, well, it could just be because you're in the RV, but Santa knows where we're at. So you're definitely going to have a Santa experience. But I've seen some debate on this online. I mean, what is it moral to convince children of Santa Claus? I know I saw some Christian couples say that they weren't going to ever do the Santa Claus thing. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that you shouldn't. I don't think anybody should swear to it lest you swear falsely, right? I don't think you should swear or promise anything, but I don't think there's anything wrong with convincing the kid that Santa Claus is going to stop by and that, Santa Claus will visit her for Christmas. She's a child. You know what? I don't see the point of trying to, fit the child into the moral. I don't know. I don't know, into the moral paradigm of discussing the merits of Santa Claus when she's just an innocent kid. It's more important um, to talk, to to say that the joy of Christmas will be there, and that, to establish a positive memory for her. Kids are good. Kids figure these things out on their own, and it's not parents lying to them. They're just it's a tradition of Christmas. Now, obviously, when Christmas is all about like presents and money and stuff like that, then that's a problem. It should be it's a Christian holiday. But I also don't think you should swear or promise. I think that's weird. But
Yeah.
but let the little girl have her look. She already has a tough life, right? Look at her. She's
Yep.
got a tough life. She's lacking. She's, deprived of the things that all the other kids have. So let her have a good memory. Let her know that she's in a place where there's safety and that people are going to care for her, and that she's going to be able to experience the things that other kids get, which is a present for kids. I mean, I'll just say that um, I went on when I was 20, I went on a mission trip to Honduras with my uncle's church from here. I went with him and we went down to Honduras, and it was in the summertime, and we gave them Christmas presents, even though it was like in July. And it was one of the most it was a very tough experience for me. It was life
Hey,
changing.
BLA.
Can you still hear me?
I can. This happened the other day. My
Mhm.
computer webcam just like goes out. So
Yeah.
continue on. I got to back out and then come back in.
Okay.
So just continue on with your story. I'll be right back.
Well, yeah. So when I was 20, I went to Honduras with my uncle's church. We went down there, and these are kids that had never had Christmas before. They had never had presents, and we were down there, on a mission, and we were giving them like dental care and stuff like that. But on one of the last days, we brought presents, and there were little kids, and it was incredibly difficult for me. And it really was a lot for me to deal with, because I saw kids that had never had anything, and they got something, and they sort of experienced the type of Christmas like kids here do. And so, we weren't telling them that like this was Santa Claus. We were just giving them wrapped Christmas presents. So I think that I'm all for giving, making like I'm all for joy and happiness, and that kids experience the things that they should as children. To me, that's incredibly valuable, and making them feel, safe and secure in a wholesome place. And the Santa Claus stuff is I don't know. I'm not a parent, so
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't.
my thoughts are like the reading the night before Christmas. I remember my parents did that when I was a little kid and believed in Santa. And somebody mentioned, I think it was Mela, and I agree. It wasn't mind shattering when I found out that
Yeah,
Santa wasn't real, but it did give I don't know. I really appreciate the little memories I had when I was a kid and believing in Santa Claus and the reindeer and decorating the tree and the house. So I definitely plan on having Christ be more present as
yeah,
part of the celebration of Christmas, where secular ideas have kind of brought it more about Santa Claus or whatnot. But I imagine I probably will do the Santa Claus thing when the kids are little, just
yeah.
because I think there really is something magical about being a child and just participating in that when you don't know any better.
Yeah, Sandy's World Bear. I don't know who you're talking about. And you said, if you're not a parent, shush. Well, I'm going to say what I have to say. And I already said that I'm not a parent. So I'm going to say what I have to say. And I just said it. And I think that, of course, I'm not a parent, and I don't, I don't know how I would do if I had kids, of course. And I'm not saying any way that other people should do it. But I will say that in my family, I'm a grown man. And like when we're at Christmas, we don't say like, oh, Santa Claus isn't real. I'm a grown man. I don't need to say that. We're having a wholesome time together, and Christmas is about the birth of Christ, who's the King of Kings. And I think that that's the most important thing. But I also think that, little kids, need to feel love and kindness. I don't think there's anything lefty about that. I think that's just,
no, don't worry about
yeah.
Santy Bear.
So
He's got some very weird opinions. So we keep him around. God bless, but don't be insulting anybody, Santy. He's a Gnostic Christian and is part of the whole Owen Benjamin Bear tribe.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I think that's a pretty deep question. I don't know. I'd probably ask Father Deacon. I think that what he has to say about it, and I would, for me, I mean, me personally, and I would listen to him. But I think that I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I had kids. What I would do, but I think in this situation in the movie, I don't think he should swear to it. But I think he should, if she says, "Is Santa Claus coming?" Well, he's going to make sure Santa Claus comes. So make sure he gets a present.
Yeah, I that's probably what I'm going to do with my children. Now, I'm not going to be. There was one girl I remember when I was in middle school. We were like in 7th or 8th grade. And she still believed in Santa Claus, and it was like a big joke in the school because her parents were very, very protective. This was a girl that, grew up in a very nice family, nice house. And they were very protective of her. And so she grew up where now she was in middle school and she still believed in a literal Santa Claus. And all the other kids were like, what? Your parents didn't tell you? That's not going to be my child. But when they're, small kids, I'll probably give them that. But like somebody said, St. Nicholas, the sort of Christian thematic themes in Christmas, I'm going to be more forthright with that. Like at our parish, for example, I dressed up as St. Nicholas and we do that. And so the kids come and they talk to St. Nick as opposed to talking to Santa Claus. So they're going to be in that type of environment for me. So yeah. Anyways, moving forward here, this is where he convinces the little girl that she'll be able to get Christmas presents and that Santa's coming to the Griswold household. So don't worry.
Yeah. And he loves her. He loves her, and he's kind. He's a kind man to her and he loves her right here.
Well, and again, he loves people, right?
Yeah.
So the big theme of the movie that I take away is that Clark cares about people over things. And this is why the next scene or so is going to lead to them at the grocery store, the Walmart. I think it's Walmart specifically.
Yeah.
With Eddie talking about how he wants to help the kids out.
I like how he's got his Blackhawks jersey on here and he's Griswold 0-0. That's his. Hey, look.
And so he doesn't want to participate in all the family drama that's going on. And anyways, this is a scene where he's just remarking on Eddie's outside and he raised his hand. Clark, the shitter was full. And you see the Dink couple getting ready to go out and do their jog. And you got Uncle Eddie putting his sewage straight into the drainage pipe there in the street. Oh man.
They're playing a tuba while he does this.
Yeah. Hilarious. So now they're talking. I think he brings the point that Eddie hadn't got gifts for the kids. And so now we move to Walmart. And of course, look at all the dog food Eddie gets. He talked about they ghosted in on fumes. They have no money, not getting gifts. And yet he's stacking this cart full of dog food.
He's old Roy.
All different types of brands. And I love this right here. It's not charity, it's family, Eddie. Well, you put it like that. Well, here's a list. I love this. He pulls the list out here. It's in alphabetical order. And why don't you I want to get you something nice, Clark. Get you something nice for Christmas. And now it's the day, Christmas Eve. We see again all the kids participating in the Christmas fest. We see Uncle Lewis and Aunt Bethany come in. Of course, Aunt Bethany can't remember anything. She can hardly hear, although she does hear the squirrel. And so
she was the voice of Betty Boop in the cartoons.
Oh, I did not know that. She wraps up the family cat. She wraps a green jello platter for dinner. So hilarious here. Then they're getting ready to have their Christmas Eve dinner. Of course, Uncle Eddie's in a blue 70s leisure suit, looking fabulous. And Catherine, Eddie's wife, cooks the turkey. Here, Clark says, Aunt Bethany, why don't you say the blessing? Of which she recites the Pledge of Allegiance. The blessing.
He's got my sweater on. Look at Clark.
He does have your sweater on. It is the sweater, that's for sure. And then Uncle Eddie stands up, puts his hand over his heart, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, of which Clark, he's like, wow, okay. Then he goes to cut in the turkey. And of course, the turkey is totally dry, overcooked. The inside, there's no meat.
Fumes.
Yeah, fumes. The family's chewing on it. It's not exactly delicious, that's for sure.
Save the neck for me, Clark.
Yes. Yeah, save the neck for me, Clark. And then the cat that Aunt Bethany packaged as a gift begins to chew on the lights on the Christmas tree. The dog is chewing on a bone, which throws up underneath the dinner table. And he's like, oh, he's probably just rummaging through the trash, of which he definitely was. And Uncle Lewis goes, hey, Clark, if you're not doing anything useful,
bring me my stogies.
Yeah. Is there anything else I can do for you, Uncle Lewis? And so here's the cat electrocutes itself. Right.
This is clever the way they did this, because the cat is electrocuted under the chair and we don't see any cat electrocuted. So that's how they got around the censors and kept the rating of the film.
Yep. So the cat dies and Eddie comes over. Well, if that cat had 9 lives, he used up all of them.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, Clark, if you don't mind, I'd like to fumigate this chair. Oh, man. Uncle Eddie's the best. So they look at the chair. Clark's trying to preserve what is left of Christmas Eve dinner, eating Christmas Eve dessert. Of course, Uncle Lewis, he is smoking a stogie. And he gets a little too close to the Christmas tree and sets it ablaze. And he himself is on fire. And this leads to Clark getting the letter from work, but it's not his Christmas bonus. He's enrolled in, what was it, a Jello club or something like that?
Yeah, Jello of the Month club or whatever.
And so he thanks everybody, tells them he's going to get flights for them so that they can come for the opening day of the family pool. And that wasn't what he thought it was, unfortunately. And so now this is where he begins to really get upset. And he starts drinking some of that spiked eggnog to take the edge off. And he yells at the family, you want to get me something? And he talks about his boss and calls him all sorts of names, of which we see Uncle Eddie hop in the RV and take off.
Yes.
And so now Clark's in a rage. He's cutting up everything. He goes and gets a tree right from his yard, which smashes into the neighbor's window. The wife is Ellen's like, Clark, are you okay? Yeah, I'm great. A little wobbly on the handle here. He takes a chainsaw, and cuts the whole damn thing off. And then he starts putting all the Christmas presents underneath the new Christmas tree, of which everybody, Aunt Bethany goes, "Do you hear that?" And of course, there's a squirrel inside the Christmas tree, which sets off a whole cascade of events here with Rocky, the Rottweiler Snot, chasing the squirrel through the house, destroying everything, destroying the china, all the plates on the dinner table. And Clark comes in here with his father. So we see the men are coming in here to take care of the situation, to find the squirrel and get him underneath that blanket. And they're going to hit him with a hammer. But of course, the squirrel just runs around. Now we see the dink neighbor saying, "You got to put an end to this." No, Margot. And so Margot then says she's going to do it. Big boss lady. She's going to walk over there. Before she even knocks on the door, Clark opens it, and the squirrel and the Rottweiler come rushing out, landing on her. Their
postmodern dead tech apartment house.
Yeah.
Right, with no decoration.
And so she wasn't able to punch Clark in the face like she wanted Todd to do. So she comes back and she punches Todd in the face. And so now Clark's seeing how everything is ruined. The family members want to leave the Christmas, and he's not letting that happen. He's not letting them leave this joyous celebration. And now he's over here drinking water, and he's kind of fed up with everything. But his dad comes in and tells him he believes in him, basically, and telling him that he knows that he's a good father and to not be acting like he is. And it ends with Clark talking about reading The Night Before Christmas, of which he tells him, "I want you to do it, son. This is your house." And so officially a passing down of the tradition, right? So now the grandfather is giving it to his son, the father, to do it for the children. And that's where we move to, I believe next is where he's reading The Night Before Christmas right here, The Night Before Christmas. And so we have some music in the background. We can see Uncle Eddie's up to something. His family's there, but Uncle Eddie isn't. And here he goes, Eddie. And there's his boss, just as he requested, with a red bow.
A Christmas bow, yeah.
And they come in. The boss threatens to call the police, get these people arrested. And then Clark explains, of course, his wife has already called the police. And Clark explains what has happened and that Uncle Eddie has basically got him because he was upset he didn't get his Christmas bonus. The boss comes to his senses and realizes that it may look good as a bottom line or on paper, but it doesn't really look good in regards to seeing how it actually affects people. Talking about that the saving of money and not giving away Christmas bonus actually isn't that beneficial when you really think about it.
Yeah, and Automix says Eddie with a guy in dog chains and a Christmas bow. It's interesting how there's always continuous imagery from A Christmas Carol, right? So again, we have a guy, dragging his chains.
Good point.
And remember that occurred in Home Alone with this kind of sound of chains and the grating of the trash.
Yeah, it was one of the ghosts of Christmas. I forget.
Yeah,
I think it was Christmas Past.
Yeah, Marley, the first guy in A Christmas Carol, Marley, dragging his chains. And also interesting how, like, everything in Clark's world is coming apart at the seams, like you said, where everything is sort of ending up, not designed to, but is trying to unravel Christmas like a Christmas present. It's unraveled. The tree goes, the family goes, all of the presents go, his bonus is gone. And in the end, we have Eddie, who is the hero here, right? Who brings in he brings the guy to, so he brings Ebenezer Scrooge to the house, and Scrooge sees the error of his ways, and now he is united with this family here. And then we're going to have the SWAT team come in because the wife calling the police results in the SWAT team coming because he's Ebenezer Scrooge. Right. He's the corporate overlord with the long table and Yakin and Boaz lights on the side of him and all the hourglasses, like he's a master of time, like he's like a sort of anti-Father Christmas and Father Time combined. And then in the end, we're united in Clark's house. So Clark, in the end, is the one who brings them all together.
Right. And it's his family that sort of brings them back to reality, that brings them out of this sort of depersonalized world of business and the bottom line and money, and seeing that it's really about people. And so, again, the theme throughout this is that the family unit and Clark Griswold's family is actually the source of celebration. It's what brings people together. Clark putting people over things, and that's what brings then the boss to the same conclusion. So it's very pro family. I mean, it's explicit that that's what the movie is, really the message that's undergirding all the comedy and all the slapstick stuff.
And the Night Before Christmas is interesting to read. It's a Santa Claus Christmas poem to read the night before Christmas. But it's interesting because all this leads up to Christmas and we don't see Christmas Day, just like all of life is sort of leading up to Christmas. The night before Christmas is one thing, and then everything in our world changes the next morning when Christ is born, right?
Yep.
So the entire world changes, and their world changes, and there's joy and happiness.
Right. So the boss then says, whatever your Christmas bonus was at last year, add 20%. And Clark passes out. The family starts to celebrate because they're going to get the pool. It's a bigger bonus than he was even expecting. And meanwhile, the police are literally breaking into the house, smashing through the windows. And the boss then tells that he's not pressing charges. Of course, his wife comes in her fur coat, still in her pajamas. And we see that, again, what's initially was the intentions of the boss get totally reversed once he sees how it affects real people. And even the police officer, oh man, that's really low, sir. You weren't going to give Christmas bonus?
Look at SWAT team. I don't know, sir. If that was my family, I'd probably do the same thing.
And then we see a shooting star here with sort of a red tinge to the sky. And that leads Eddie's children to actually maybe believe in Santa Claus, of which Uncle Lewis is going to light up next to the sewage drain, which is going to then shoot the reindeer and Santa Claus that Clark was throwing away, that he beat up initially, into the sky. Of which then they start to sing the national anthem.
I guess looking into the sky and seeing Santa Claus's chariot is like, looking and seeing the Star of Bethlehem.
Yeah. And then everybody's singing the national anthem together. Yeah. Which, again, the Star of Bethlehem and the Nativity, it is about family. It's about the family of Christ, which is then all of us who then follow in that salvific reality. And so this basically concludes the film. We never even get to Christmas Day.
Yeah.
That Clark, again, sort of has completed and has provided the ultimate Christmas celebration for the family, despite everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that is A Christmas Vacation. It is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Yeah.
And even though it has, again, a lot of that slapstick comedy and everything that could go wrong does go wrong, it's a movie you can see over and over again.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get old, even though, it's going to happen, the lines, but it's a great Christmas classic, and it's so pro-family. It's very, very pro-family. So even despite all the comedy and everything, I think underlying it is that the family is what it's all about, and it truly brings people together and to cherish people over things.
Yeah, it's pro-family, and in light of today's world, it's quite profound. Who would have thought that family movies, especially at Christmas time, would be a source of like totally juxtaposed profundity against the world that we live in now. But that's the case, and even with other Christmas movies, I mean, I think that, if I had a choice of one wholesome Christmas movie now, it would be Home Alone. This provides a nice contrast to it. Christmas Vacation is funny. And like you said, it's not dated because I think that the John Hughes and the movie makers chose to play. There's a lot of slapstick, but they chose to play the truth of the situation. Number one being that Clark is a family man who has to provide for his family, and his job, he's obviously in tough times and looking for that Christmas bonus. And yet, the spirit of Christmas and family sort of brings them all together, and they find happiness in that, which is a contrast against Todd and Margot, of course, next door, who,
Right.
interestingly enough, that's what the world became,
Right.
is Todd and Margot.
Yep.
Not for us, not for the people we know, but for the wider world out there. I guess next year we'll have to do like Scrooged and Bad Santa or something.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
down. I'm down.
Yeah.
Jesse asked, in the scene where the SWAT comes in, Ellen grabs Clark's junk when, like, they say hands up, and then she puts
Yeah.
it back on his junk. And he said,
Mhm.
why was she holding his male protuberance?
Yeah.
And I would say when shit hits the fan, when things were chaotic, she depends on his masculinity.
Yeah. I read something about her making that as a choice, and the filmmakers didn't like that she did that at first, and then they got on board with it because of exactly what you just said. She's the mother in the family, and she's very pretty. She's very feminine. She's a good mother. She's teaching her daughter how to do, to be a future mother, and they hold it together. It's also interesting how, again, like, she doesn't nag him. The family doesn't become unraveled. It's exterior events that become unraveled. And you contrast that with the neighbors, how they are all unraveled. Everything they do throws them off. And Clark, again, he's a bumbling, fumbling, stumbling fool. And I think that that's led to derivative works. And Rachel's talked about this a lot, how we see the father portrayed in movies now. I think that, like Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of comes out of this. There were a couple of movies that came directly from this movie that were made right after, and a couple of TV shows where, again, we have this kind of bumbling family man. 1989 is around the year where The Simpsons started, so we get Homer Simpson. This is before, Elaine in this, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Margot. This is, I think that's the year Seinfeld started, was 1989. So it's interesting how those things come and go. And The Simpsons is still here, and Seinfeld is what it is. But the movie, like, you watch this against other movies where there's a bumbling father, and this one kind of remains. It remains sort of timeless. And again, it's because of the mix of humor and emotional scenes in the movie. That scene, the key scene in this movie, of course, is the attic, right? And that's because the house will always function as a kind of outer symbol of the character's inner state. So when the windows in the house get broken out, it's because Clark's psyche is like slowly getting shattered as he goes along on his journey. But it's the inner core of the house and the Christmas tree and the family that keeps it all together. When he goes into the attic, it's like he's going into his mind, he's going into his memories, and he's going into his past. But then he's brought back down low, like you said, through the door, back to reality. But he still has those memories, and that scene is so beautiful because it's totally contrasted against the rest of the film. So
Right.
I think these are both really they're both very good films.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I, again, appreciate you coming on and giving us all your great knowledge. Some people said we should do Elf. One person said it was one of the last great Christmas movies, but I came to dislike Will Ferrell over the years.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
I've never liked Elf, honestly. I've never, I get why people like it, but I've never really liked it that much.
Yeah. And but I definitely sympathize with the loss of appreciation of Will Ferrell. He's become worse and worse over the years.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we had 2 last super chats, and we're already over an hour what we planned, man. We always try to do it quicker. I don't even know where the time goes. It does not feel like we've done this for 3 hours.
With Will, just back to Will Ferrell. I mean, Will Ferrell is probably the exact thing that I was just talking about playing for laughs, because he was very funny at the time. But the things that he was funny about have become dated, and they're not as funny anymore. They're all temporary. He's kind of like an anti-Chevy Chase when Chevy Chase is at his best.
That's a great point. Yeah, because
in the show how he was chosen because he has a Chevy Chase thing. He's tall, he kind of looks like him. He's got sort of a similar chin.
That's a great point.
You know, he does similar mannerisms. He's got similar like a tone of voice. But his movies are like few and far between, and it's funny things. He's still fun. I mean, some of the things that we laughed at when we were younger, like they're still funny, but they become just more hokey and more dated as time goes on. So
right. Whereas again, that's what the appeal of Christmas Vacation is. It's timeless, and you go back and you watch some of the Will Ferrell stuff. I remember I tried to rewatch through high school and stuff. Anchorman was like everybody. All my friends. We had inside jokes. Anchorman was hilarious.
Yeah,
I remember like a couple of years ago, it was on or something. I tried to watch it, and I just didn't find it as like at all as funny as I used to. And it was like I didn't even watch the whole movie. I turned it off.
Yeah, it's not really as funny. I think when you watch it now, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to laugh in this part that's supposed to be fun. These characters think they're very funny.
Right.
You know, they're aware they're in a movie. Like Peter Griffin says in Family Guy, I'm very aware that I'm watching a movie right now, you know. But in this, like in Christmas Vacation, like it's funny how it's filmed on a soundstage and it looks like it's filmed on location. You know, and that movies do that purposefully. But like, I believe that they're a family. I believe that they're doing these things. So,
yeah,
it's very good.
Point.
Yeah.
And to conclude, we had 2 generous super chats that came in. One from Sean throws in a generous $50 and says, "Merry Christmas, dudes." Well, Merry Christmas to you, Sean. Thank you so much for that generous super chat over on Dono Chat. God bless you, brother, and wish you and your family nothing but the best. And then Jeremy FB_48 in chat throws in $20 and says, "God bless." Well, thank you very much, Jeremy FB48. God bless you, brother. And I think that's going to do it. Anything again, Shill, anything where you would want your stuff's in the video description, you're linked in the title, however people can support your work and help you out.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Another great time here. Again, this is like our 15th stream together. You guys go back and watch all of our movie streams on this channel right here, right on Church of the Eternal Logos. We've done a lot of those. Go back and check out the Master and Margarita stream that we just did. You can support me at Bazed Lit Analyzer at YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. I want to dedicate this stream right here to my friend, the real John Connor, who's been a very supportive of me and been a very, very good friend. He's a good man, a good Christian, a good man. And so thank you very much, real John Connor. Shouts out to everybody out there in the chat. I really, you know, we're a few days away from Christmas, a couple days away from Christmas here. And you know, we're in the Christmas season. And I just hope that everybody is able to, like I did, you know, thankfully I'm blessed to be able to come down here with my family and spend time with my family and my friends. And I just, everybody should reach out to their family and friends if you haven't talked to them, especially your friends. Try to reestablish those connections if you haven't, because it's important in life. You know, we never know when people are going to be gone, when they're just going to, when their time is up. So I think it's, you know, and I mean this in a positive way. I think it's important to spend the time that you can, even if it's on the phone. That means something to me. Every one of y'all means something to me. And please come to my channel for 2024. It's going to be a good new year. I've got a stream coming up I'm going to do one on Arabian Nights on, it's got Aladdin, Alibaba, all that. I've got one coming up on 80s finance and money from this book by the guy who wrote The Big Short. I'll be doing Bret Easton Ellis, Cormac McCarthy, postmodernism, more Shakespeare, more books, more movies. So a lot to come. And shouts out to all of our friends out there. Jay, Jamie, Tristan Haggard, Chase Haggard, the Wilsons, all of our friends, all of our families, and especially to you and your family, David Patrick Harry. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas time, and thanks again for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course, brother. Thank you for coming on. I always enjoy our streams together, and I appreciate not just you coming on, but over now it's been a couple years. I appreciate your friendship, man, and thanks for everything you do, and you do great work. I always tell you, if there's anything I can do to help you out, to promote your work, to whatever I can do that's in my power, I will do it, man. I appreciate you as a person, appreciate you as a friend, and appreciate you as another content creator doing our best with whatever skill set we have.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Love you too, homeboy.
Yeah. Again, God bless you and your family, and shout out to your sister.
Yeah.
Tell her I said hi and Merry
will.
Christmas to
Will do.
her. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas down in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But really appreciate you, man.
She said, "Woo!" She heard that.
Oh, hotty toddy heard me, huh?
That's right. That's right. There she is. That's right.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your time with your family. I apologize for taking more time today. Was hoping we could wrap things up a little quicker. Wasn't planning to go as long as we did. Dr. Vagisil throws in $1 super chat here real quick. Says, Merry Christmas. Don't give Santa cookies because they have seed oils. Saint Basil for the win. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Vagisil, for that. God bless you and your family, brother. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy the time with your families, y'all. And I am going to be off for the next couple of days. And so you'll see me probably Tuesday. So until then, as always, God bless.